to governance in multilateral organizations for achieving sustainable development goals. In the realm of global cooperation, the role of multilateral organizations is vital for achieving the sustainable development goals. Their governance structures are the key for fostering partnerships, accountability, and driving collective action towards a sustainable and equitable world. Our esteemed speakers for this session are Dr. Pralok Gupta, Associate Professor, WTO Studies at IIFT, Mr. Akshay Mathur, Senior Director at Asia Society Policy Institute, India, Dr. Amarnath Tripathi, Associate Professor, Jaipuria Institute of Management, Noida. We welcome you all, dear speakers. Please join us on the dais. Declare for this particular session is Mr. Akshay Mathur.
We've been given the post-lunch session, so that means they were expecting all of you to be taking a nap. So the CD, now it's up to us, the three of us, to wake you up. So I'll do this. To wake you all up, I have a quiz question. So, can anybody take a guess? And if you are from a multilateral organization, please don't. But the discussion today is about governance in multilateral organizations. Multilaterals like UN, World Bank, IMF, etc., right? Governance in multilateral organizations for achieving sustainable development goals. So that's the session, but let me start with a quiz question. How many total number of multilateral organizations are there in the world? If you're from a multilateral, please don't answer, you might know it, but I don't know if there are people here from multilateral. 20? No?
No, 20 those are in America.
So, go up.
200.
It's actually 200.
Wow.
And so please, there's a way to give a little award in the evening. One award should go to this gentleman also. It's actually true, because we always think of only the United Nations and the World Bank and the IMF because these are the most familiar ones. But they have, there are many other organizations under the United Nations umbrella, and so they are close to 200. So when we are talking about governance in multilateral organizations to achieve SDGs, you can imagine it is a huge subject. We can't take like 200 organizations and evaluate, what the governance issues are. But I'm leaving it to Pralok and Amarnath here to actually do justice, to actually at least give some indication of 1 or 2 or 3 issues which are big governance issues in these organizations. And then maybe we can close with a few questions. So in my mind, I think there are 2 or 3 big questions that we can ask. What are the big challenges with governance in multilateral organizations today? What are some of the reforms that have been proposed? So that we can get into a little bit about, I think this is a mixed audience, so maybe even if you can get some idea of 3 or 4 reforms that have been proposed for the governance of the multilaterals, that might be helpful. And finally, who's going to do those reforms? Is it up to the US? Is it up to US and Europe, G7, or does India have a role? So what I want to do is, maybe Pralok, I'll start with you. And I think you've followed one multilateral more than others. But why don't you start with one, and maybe then I'll ask you questions about the rest if you have. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Akshay. And let me thank the organizations also for inviting us for this panel, which is actually the need of hour, because whether we accept or not, multilateral organizations are there since ages. They will continue to be here, and they will continue to give norms, rules for the international governance, which will in turn affect your national or domestic governance. So let me introduce first quickly myself. I am Dr. Pralok Gupta. I am a trade negotiator for the Government of India, for the WTO World Trade Organization, as well as the free trade agreements that the Government of India is currently negotiating with EU, UK, Australia, and many other countries. I'm also an associate professor at the Center for WTO Studies, which comes under the Ministry of Commerce. So since I deal mainly with the World Trade Organization, so my intervention is mainly on the World Trade Organization, that how the governance issues are there, whether they are catering to the sustainable development goals, and what are the, as Akshay was mentioning, what are the some kind of reform proposal, what need to be done. So the World Trade Organization, this was the biggest international trade reform in the history, because the earlier version of trade organization was General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which was established in 1948. Let me quickly give one background on why that was established. After the World War II, all economies were war torn, and the common thinking was that we should increase exports and reduce imports. So why? So that we earning income from other countries, but our income does not go outside. But there is a fallacy in this argument. Fallacy is that one country's export is another country's import. So if all countries are thinking like that we should increase our export but curb import, then ultimately nobody would be able to export. That was precisely happening in the after the World War II. So all the developed countries, US, EU, they come forward and developed an agreement which is called General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. So this was an agreement, it was called Rich Man's Club. And the name suggests because it was catering to primarily to the need of the developed countries. And developing countries like India or least developed countries, they are nowhere or very less, their voices are not heard. So in 1995, 1st January 1995, WTO was established. So it was considered as a voice for the developing countries. And the beauty was that that the decision was from consensus, equal vote. So it is not like IMF or World Bank where your voting share depend on the contribution that you are making. So consensus, even a simple or very small country can block any decision making. Second was the dispute settlement body, enforcement power. So this is one of the very few multilateral organizations which was having an enforcement power. So if the rules are not followed by any country, other country can sue, can launch a dispute, and then the decision. And I just give you one example of why I am saying that the beauty of this system, of this multilateral organization. There was a dispute against US by a country, Antigua and Barbuda. How many of you have heard this country, Antigua and Barbuda? Maybe very few, right? If you see Antigua and Barbuda on the map of the world, it is just a pencil dot. And US, big, very big. But Antigua and Barbuda was able to win the dispute against US. That was the beauty of this multilateral system. And actually, the success of this multilateral system become something, I would say, which was not acceptable to US. So sometimes when you say you become victim of your own success. So same, the WTO becomes the victim of its own success, and US refused to appoint judges in its dispute settlement appellate body. Ultimately, the dispute settlement system completely become non-functional. As a result, the governance issue that is currently facing in the World Trade Organization is that there is no dispute. So all countries are at their own. So today, by good luck, countries are following whatever the rules are being followed. But it's just a matter of time. Because if one country starts dishonoring the rules of the game, then obviously others will also think that what's the point that I honor the game. It is just like the same, like if you're on a traffic signal, if somebody starts disobeying the traffic signal, then you also think that why should I wait? Let me also jump the traffic light. The same thing. So this is the biggest governance challenge. Now why this is important from the SDG perspective? Because the trade is a very big catalyst for sustainable development goals. Whether SDG 1, your no poverty, SDG 2, zero hunger, or your health and well-being, or climate change, in every aspect there are WTO rules which are catering. For example, environment, or life below the water. So there is a fisheries subsidies agreement just signed in the ministerial conference, last MC12 ministerial conference in Geneva, and in MC13 Abu Dhabi also there was a discussion. So this helps in creating favorable environment for domestic policies, so they can be tailored to prevent the environment, for reducing the poverty and giving more choices to the consumers' productivity. So what are the reforms? That was actually the third question that was being posed. So actually that is the biggest challenge, because right now the reform that is being proposed is contrary to what we have achieved so far. So for example, one issue in the governance, multilateral governance, was consensus making. So many people criticize, or many countries, rather developed countries, criticize that because of consensus making, since even a small country can block the proposal, this is not a good way. So we can agree this thing, because yeah, this is true. But at the same time, the approach that is being suggested is plurilateral. So it is a smaller version of multilateralism, where a small group of countries, which is a member of the multilateral institution, they decide the rules of the game, and that become the rules of the multilateral system. So it looks okay that okay, some countries can decide, but at the hand side, if you see, ultimately this will go back, we will take back to the previous system where the developed countries or the big country, they will decide the rule of the game. And that will be detrimental to the developing countries in SDG. Remember, sustainable development goals, they are not for developed countries. They have already achieved whatever development, whatever income they have. These goals are for developing countries. They are for the benefit of developing countries. So any rules of the game which are beneficial purely for developed countries, they are not going to support SDGs. So this plurilateralism that is being proposed by some members, developed country members, that is not in support of attaining SDGs. That's my view. The second is with respect to your dispute settlement. Again, if you are not supporting the appointment of judges, then whatever reform you are proposing, that is not going to solve any purpose. So these are the two biggest issues that are happening right now in the WTO, and as we are talking right now here, yesterday only the public forum meeting of the WTO ended in Geneva, which was a 4-day event, where WTO tried to come up with its image that they are public forum, that they are taking the public or the everything like NGOs, think tank, policy organizations, and they can raise their voices, their concern. But unfortunately, many developed countries, they are not in support of these direct attainment of SDGs. Thank you so much. I stop here.
I'll come back to you with one question. So, who should actually lead this reform? But while you think about that, take us through your questions.
Thank you, Akshay, and organizer for inviting me. Now, my co-panelist has discussed about WTO and trade. See, the multilateralism has started after World War II, and it has been identified as key platform to deal with these certain global issues and issues that are interdependent, like climate change, inequality, so some of the issues. It's not that these organizations have not done something great, they have done something great. Even if you look at the India, there are more than 800 projects are running by the World Bank only. So we are getting something from these multilateral organizations. But if you look at the current scenario of the multilateral organization, they become almost irrelevant given this current geopolitical situation. Even after when Paris conference, after Paris conference, China, USA both agreed, but then Trump, after emergence of the Trump, they declined whatever they have agreed. And then also if you look at the global politics and of the different nations, so see the polarization in the public debate is also has started. So if you talk about all this, so multilateralism is somewhere the kind of relevancy of these multilateral organizations we are missing. Now because they are not able to deal with contemporary issues, even if you look at the COVID and experience of the WHO, how they have dealt with the COVID So again, you can see that they are not able to deal with the certain relevant issues. Why they are not able to deal with certain relevant issues? That there some problem with their bureaucracy system, some problem they have for policy making, they have some hierarchy system they are following, then they are very slow in the process. All these processes need to be corrected. Now, but when we talk about multilateralism in terms of the sustainable development goals, so see, there are 5 pillars of the sustainable development goals. People, planet, peace, prosperity, and partnership. Even if you look at this 70th goal of this SDG, it's also talk about the partnership. Why do we need the partnership? If you look at the certain goals that one country cannot achieve without support of their neighboring country. If you talk about the climate action goal, if you talk about the goal life on underwater, there are certain goals that are you are depending on the other country, so you need partnership, you need help from other country. But how we can bring these partnership, how they can work from. So if you look at the trend in the last, let's say, few years, so mini-lateralism has started. You can see there are small groups are being formed and they are working like Quad with one of the examples. So there are certain, then bilateralism is also has started because one-to-one we can deal certain issues, but maybe not multiple countries can deal certain issues, but one-to-one we can deal certain issues. But if these are the relevant, how can we can make them relevant? We need, these institutions need significant reforms. Particularly they need to democracy, the system they are following, that is not appropriate because certain developed countries, they have some organization like even World Bank, IMF has mentioned, they have a veto power, developed countries has a veto power. So certain countries has a power and then they are contributing, they are giving funds. So they are basically playing certain role. So how these change, I mean, we need to change, we correct these things. Then not only the democratic system, then the bureaucracy system of these organizations that also need to be corrected because they are in some process they are very slow. And when you talk about the sustainability, then accountability is also important because they have certain policies, but they are not some accountability and transparency is also important if you talk about in terms of, especially in terms of the sustainability. Then how we can achieve it? The third question is posed that how we can they can achieve these, means who can lead the role. Actually, in my opinion, the countries like India or the global south countries, they are now getting, because earlier what was that there was a unipolar country or only 2 poles were there. Now the world is moving towards a multipolar system where we can have multiple countries, we can see. So emerging economies are very important in this case. They can play a leading role because they are also the most sufferer of this. So if you talk about it, especially development and sustainability, so they actually suffered a lot because just what development the developed country has made, they have suffered. And then the most important part is when inclusivity is another important issue that we have to bring. Inclusivity in terms of 2 things. One, if you talk about inclusivity, so one we can say there are certain countries, they are not part, might be part, but they are not part in the decision making. For example, African countries. So are some of the Asian countries even. So how we can give them importance or how they can play an important role in the policy making, because if you look at African countries, most of the vulnerable populations are living there. So if they have not a voice, they have not a say in the organization, so how we can say that one section of the society or world, how can provide, how we can achieve the sustainable development goals. Then another important things that inclusivity in terms of not only the country. Now the systems are moving towards the multi-stakeholders. So why I'm saying the multi-stakeholders are important, because when you talk about the sustainability, So some of the local solutions are become very important. Maybe some solutions are important, are very relevant for particular in local area, not in other area. But so who will provide these local solutions? The civil society's role become very important. So these can play an important role, so we give them importance. Then another important role, that is the private player. Why I am saying the private sector should also bring here? The reason being is that if you see most of the challenge in terms of the sustainability or dealing with the climate issues, the finance, right? So finance is the big challenge that most of the developing countries are facing. So if you bring the private sector and something, if we can in some kind of incentive, we provide them to invest certain in climate change related infrastructure or some other solutions, so we can also help us. These are my points.
Thank you, Akshay again. So, as far as reforms are concerned and leading the reforms, one is that the broad topic of this session, multilateral governance and related question reforms. So, one is that as far as multilateral governance is concerned, one size does not fit all. That is very clear, because what kind of reforms or leading is required in one multilateral organization may not suit the other organization. And as Akshay was, the first point was that there are more than 200 or around 200 multilateral organizations. So definitely each organization requires its own tailor-made approach, and maybe the catalyst or the leading pillar may be different. As far as WTO is concerned, and to some extent I believe that WHO, World Health Organization also, there is a significant scope for India to be the leader in this direction. And some efforts are being taken, because if you want to be leader in a multilateral organizations of, like, there are 165 members in the WTO as of now. But if you want to lead of 165 countries, you should have at least a critical mass with you. Unfortunately, as of now, the situation of India is not that. On many issues, India is like fighting its battle on its own. Even the matter is of developing, matter is of interest to developing countries. But many developing countries, like even our neighboring countries, they are, or countries in Southeast Asia, they are having forged bonds with the developed countries. So that is where the diplomacy or the other channels will come into play. And one good step taken by government of India, they have recently established a global South Dakshin, which is established in the same building in the RIS, Research and Information System, in some other part of this building. So that Dakshin is basically development knowledge sharing initiative, which is basically to take care of the issues of that all the developing countries and NDCs together come forward with some solutions, so that there should be partnership. So these kind of initiatives are required, so that at least there is a global voice in this organization. Otherwise, as of now, it looks like it is a single voice, maximum 1 or 2 countries. I just give you one example quickly. When this COVID-19 happened, so India and South Africa proposed that there should be a waiver from the TRIPS, which is intellectual property rights protection, with respect to the vaccines and therapeutics. No, this is a very genuine demand. Vaccines are required for everyone. And as the same was that no one is protected until everyone is protected. The same was with therapeutics or testing other things. But because it was a golden opportunity for the big pharma companies to earn money to become billionaire, they were not ready. And finally, what happened that even if such a just demand, which was very logical and which was used for all countries, only India and South Africa were fighting the battle. Some countries later on agreed, but the US did not agree. So finally, they did not accept this proposal. There would be a waiver from the intellectual property compliance with respect to these things. So this is just one example that even on such issues, sometimes we are very alone. So the issue is that we cannot reform until we have a critical mass. So before going reform, first of all, we need to have a critical mass with us. So effort should be in that direction. Thank you.
I think we have a few minutes, so I'll just add one more one more area of investigation, which those who follow multilaterals, I think, follow it rather closely. And that is just coming back to an organization that we all know very well, which is the United Nations. And I think one thing that we have all been tracking is how well is the United Nations funded. Now, United Nations is funded by its members. Increasingly what has happened is that the members used to give funds so that it used to go into the United Nations core budget, what it is called as a core budget. And then the United Nations used to divide it depending on the priorities that have been set for the year. Increasingly what has happened is that the more and more of the funding that is going to the United Nations is going as earmarked funds. So initially it was, at one point it was 10%, then it became 20%, then it became 30%. So the earmarked funds started to grow. Now, you all know the word earmarked. So typically what it means is that if something is earmarked, it means that it will not go to the general budget, which means the UN Secretary General and the members will not have control or transparency. But the funder who's putting in that fund will actually direct it to a certain cause. So for instance, there are special earmarked funds for Ukraine, because the West said that that is very important, so the fund should go towards Ukraine. Or say between Israel and Palestine, or say another part of the world, that the donors think is important. And it's not just the West, you know, there are other countries. So for instance, Saudi Arabia may think that certain amount of funds it gives should go to a particular cause only, it should not go into the general budget. Now these things actually cause a lot of strain and difficulty in actually achieving sustainable development goals. You can imagine the basics is that we have a certain pool of funds, and the more earmarked they get, the harder, the smaller amount remains for other things. That's number one. Number two, it also, the wars and all these geopolitical tensions have taken away some of that, resources that were otherwise available. So I think given the importance of the multilateral organizations, there has been an effort. So I'll end with just this thing that last year under India's G20 presidency, there was an effort to actually put out a whole paper on how should the multilateral development banks be reformed so that they can actually lend more. And it was one of Indian G20 presidency's greatest successes. I don't think it is talked about as often as it should be. So I'll stop there. I was told that we should end in 30 minutes, and we have 3-4 minutes. So I don't know if we're doing questions, but maybe we can take one question and or two questions, but we'll still end at 3:30. Yeah.
To bypass the WTO, now we have G20, we have Quad, FTAs, different the countries are entering the FTAs with their counterparts, G20, Quad, and then G7. So do you think WTO has any relevance left today, or it has become a different sort of organization? Thank you.
That's a very good question. In fact, that is very much debated in all discussion related to WTO. This question inevitably comes, whether WTO has any relevance now. But whether we like or not, it has relevance, because still it is the globe setter, trade rules. Still most of the countries are following the global rules that are set up by the WTO. Free trade agreements are there, so that is between the two countries. They cannot dictate the terms between the rest of the world. Similarly, G20 or the other groupings, they are more like declarations. They don't have enforcement power. So they are good things. They are declared, okay, we strive to do this thing, we strive to achieve that thing. But as far as suppose if whatever there is declaration, joint statement, some countries not following, then what will you do? There is no element, there is no mechanism for that thing. But WTO, I agree that right now the appellate body, dispute settlement body is dysfunctional. But it does not mean that it will remain dysfunctional forever. There is hope, there are efforts to revive this thing. So still by and large WTO is where their global rules are being set, and many countries are devoting their time and energy. So I think it is still relevant.
My question to you, Mr. Gupta, in 2020 Act of 2000 and up to 2014, there used to be one joint secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, which was given the responsibility of advocacy. In that advocacy in Sabtu House, near Madi House, I have attended at least a dozen meetings with the FICCI, with CIA, with leading chamber of commerce, where they used to invite the person, high official from the WTO and agency. And I think whether it's a tariff, non-tariff, or anti-dumping, any issue where India had the edge in the quality, in the volume, and where we were deprived of export because of WTO barrier. So that culture is no more there now. No industry and chamber, they are struggling and no result come. What is your opinion? Let it be revised. It is not the responsibility of the government of India, Ministry of External Affairs, who can only react with the foreign country. No ministry can act. इसमें कोई रिभाव की जरूरत नहीं है.
No, you raised a very good point. So there are two aspects to this, and quickly conclude in 2 minutes. One is that the international part of this advocacy, and then the domestic part advocacy. As far as the domestic part is concerned, the Right Ministry of Commerce, to which I work, and we do a lot of stakeholder consultations, whether it is a WTO or it is the different free trade agreements that I am involved in, through FICCI, through CII, SOCHM, TPCI. So we do a lot of consultations. Even whenever there is a ministerial conference, this time it was in February end. So in January we have a expert group meeting with various stakeholders. As far as international advocacy is concerned, you are right that since Ministry of External Affairs is the front face of that thing, so it is their responsibility. But what happened that, and I am talking the practical aspect, there was a disconnect between, because MEA has their own work, their own kind of advocacy issue. Ministry of Commerce, the trade is separate. So generally, trade took a back seat when they are doing different kind of advocacy, or they are different like MEA ambassadors, other things, they are doing this work. But gradually this problem is now being overtaken, because even the IFS officers, they are now realizing that trade is a significant part of anything. Even our Prime Minister, whenever going any country, trade is an important aspect of the discussion. So even there is a growing realization in the Indian Foreign Service officers that trade is an important thing, and they have to keep abreast of that thing. They have to deliver on that thing. Trade and of course investment also. And the second, there are also increasing postings from the Ministry of Commerce also in the foreign missions dedicated to this work. So they also contribute to this kind of advocacy, giving back information what is happening in those countries, which is important for India. So both work is going on. I am not saying that it is complete or 100% satisfaction, but I would say it has improved significantly in, I would say, last 10 years. Thank you.
I promise you we'll finish in 30 minutes, so all that's left for me to do is thank these two gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Akshay.
So I would like to invite Mr. Parma for felicitating the panelists. I will request Giri.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. This way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Two dynamic leaders, CS Deepak Jain and Ms. Vidita Tugla. Highlight of the summit, the fireside chat, consciousness, leadership and governance for a Viksit Bharat and a better world, where thought leaders will engage in enriching dialogue on how conscious leadership can drive India's progress towards a developed nation by 2047, while also contributing to global well-being.
CS Deepak Jain's journey is a remarkable testament to perseverance, self-discovery, and personal growth. Having qualified as a company secretary in 1994, he began his career as an introverted individual. facing life's ups and downs along the way, a modest beginning. However, it was April 2007, during a period of deep reflection and self-development, that he found a new path. This transformation culminated in his first major career milestone in April 2009, when he became the HOD of his department at a medium-sized listed company, an achievement that marked the beginning of a profound journey. His desire to inspire others led him to embrace motivational speaking when he shared his experiences and insights across various platforms. In December 2016, CSD Prajan made a bold decision to step away from corporate life, founding the Vijayash Foundation, a learning and development organization dedicated to the growth and empowerment of unprivileged children. At the same time, he launched his own consultancy practice as a company secretary, devoting half of his life to social causes and professional development initiatives. CSD Prajan's unwavering commitment to self-development and the principles of Dharma has been central to his journey. The life gave him more challenges and ups and downs from 2020 to 2022. He emerged stronger, and he was given the opportunity in April 2023 to lead the DMA ESG committee. With the support of DMA's President Dr. Yogesh Mishra, Secretary Mr. Amrit Arya, and the esteemed Executive Committee and ESG Committee members, the past 18 months have been a period of immense growth and success for the committee. We request Ms. Vidhi Tukral, Senior Manager of ESG at Max Life Insurance Company Limited, to share the discussion and drive our shared goals forward.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for being such a patient and alert audience. So this fireside chat is not going to be a formal one. Since morning we have been having panels around corporate governance in listed entities, startups, unlisted entities, private companies, Section A companies, NGOs, and the last panel was about multilateral organizations. So this is going to be more an informal and a relaxed one, so you can all, relax a bit, roll up your sleeves. I have, Company Secretary Deepak Jain, who would be answering all the questions. So my first question to him, and those of you, I'm sure there will be very few who would not know him, but he's a company secretary with more than 3 decades of experience, and also we know that his inclination towards spirituality is what he owes his success to. So my first question to Mr. Jain sir is that your journey from an introverted individual to now a prominent leader and a motivated speaker is truly inspiring for all of us. Could you share with us what actually inspired you to take that journey in these directions towards self-development and spiritual growth?
Yeah, thank you, Vidhi. So friends, as on date, I always recommend learning and development in the life, that we human beings should continue their journey of learning and development. So how I developed that thought? So as Vidhi said, that initially I was by nature an introvert person. So I qualified in 1994 and then joined a company, but nature was being introvert. I was doing good in the company. Life was moving, and then we all know that life gives us various ups and downs. So the introvert, our nature, what we behave like that, we remain reserved. We speak less. So as on date, I do motivational session, and when जब crowd होता है तो लगता है यार mic भी हाथ में आ जाए. So जितने ज़्यादा audience हो उतना ज़्यादा अच्छा लगता है. But earlier when we are introvert, so it is difficult to speak to even one person, even two, 3 persons face to face करना नहीं बातें हो पाती. So life was going on. I was doing something somehow good in the company. But in 2007, there was a boom in the economy. 2008 में after July, that was a recession. October 2008, if Sanjay ji and आप remember करें, so Lehman Brothers happened in 2008 October. So 2007 there was a boom everywhere, and my company gave promotion to at least 60% of the staff. So and before that, in April it happens, the appraisal and all. So I was working as a Deputy General Manager, I was not given that promotion. So I went to the boss that he did not reply adequately. So he said, actually there was we raised some funds in the company from UK, and there was one transaction in which the company lost for 20 crores of rupees. So boss said कि यार वो जो 20 करोड़ रुपए का नुकसान हुआ था वो लगता है कि आपके डिपार्टमेंट की वेस्ट हुआ है. So I came to my department, discussed with the team. The team said, sir, ये तो मतलब ही नहीं है, मतलब ये ऐसा नहीं है. और टीम ने समझाया. But I was not, I was hesitating to go to my chairman and discuss the things. So I was feeling very, very disturbed. कि यार ये क्या होगा? जब 60% लोगों का promotion हो, you feel very disturbed. And I used to be quite familiar in the organization. Then थोड़ा सा मैंने 1-2 महीना wait किया. Then something happens personally, in personal life. Then मैं हिल गया. कि यार then someone told me कि हम लोग बोलते हैं ना जब ऐसा कुछ होता है छवि जी की यार ये कुछ कर्मों का फल है ये वो that's it. All those things and all. स्टार्स अच्छे नहीं है. मैं पांडे साहब से मिलता था. पांडे साहब उस टाइम बोलते मेरे को कि दीपक ये तुम्हारे स्टार्स अच्छे नहीं चल रहे हैं. और मैं किसी और से बोलता तो वही बोलता कि पिछले जन्म का काम है. नहीं कुछ यहाँ पे इंटेलिजेंट लोग होंगे. पर कहीं ना कहीं दिमाग में था बीइंग इंट्रोवर्ट कहीं ना कहीं दिमाग में था कि अपनी बात को नहीं कह पाना अपनी बात को एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर पाना. सो लेट अस डू समथिंग. कुछ सेल्फ डेवलपमेंट जर्नी करते हैं. उस दिमाग में कुछ आया एंड आई वाज जस्ट मैं डिस्टर्ब सा मॉल में गया. मॉल में गया वहाँ पे बुक एक क्रॉसवर्ड की बुक शॉप होती थी. तो वहाँ पे एक बुक मिली मैंने ली पढ़ी. अब घर पे आया कभी बुक नहीं पढ़ी थी इससे पहले. आया घर पे आया 3 दिन में वो बुक पूरी पढ़ रही. देन कुछ चीज़ें रियलाइज हुई कुछ समझ में आया. फिर आई स्टार्टेड मैंने अपना आर्ट ऑफ लिविंग का कोर्स किया. देन माइंड में कुछ बातें खुली. देन आई स्टार्टेड मैंने स्क्रिप्चर्स ये सब पढ़ना शुरू कर दिया एंड माइंड थोड़ा सा ओपन हुआ. कुछ चीज़ें समझ में आई. मतलब एक तरह से सेल्फ डेवलपमेंट लर्निंग एंड डेवलपमेंट शुरू हुआ एंड वो जर्नी चलती चली गई. Then I started doing a public speaking course. मैंने कहा ये सबसे पहले ये जो शर्म को है ना निकालना है. इंट्रोवर्ट की जो चीज़ है ना हम बोल नहीं पाते इसको निकालना है. Then 1 साल निकला. नेक्स्ट ईयर 2008 सो ठीक था. कंपनी ने कहा चलो पिछली बार नहीं हुआ था आगे एक प्रमोशन दे दिया. थोड़ा सा और आगे बढ़े. फिर वो जो उसकी आदत पड़ गई पढ़ने की. पढ़ते रहो स्क्रिप्चर्स. अच्छा पहले क्या होता था हम लोग सोचते थे जैसे शर्मा जी यहाँ पर हैं यू आर लर्नड पर्सन. जब हम यंग थे मैं मिस्टर के शर्मा की बात कर रहा हूँ. जब हम लर्न थे देन यंग थे तो वी यूज टू लर्न अबाउट गीता एंड ऑल. तो दिमाग में सोचते यार ये तो भगवान के बारे में थियोलॉजी वी डोंट वांट टू गो इनटू गीता एंड ऑल. ये सब रिचुअल्स धर्म ये वो सब नहीं कर रहे. तो व्हेन आई रीड गीता सो इज लाइक ये तो दिस इज अबाउट लाइफ. दिस इज अबाउट हाउ टू लिव योर लाइफ. दंपता उपनिषद. अच्छा उपनिषद का हम ये सोचते थे कि it is all about rituals and all. But when I read Upanishad, it is about self-realization. The Upanishad said that if you are into various rituals, it is not your self-realization. And हमारे relatives वगैरह इधर उधर जाते थे अपना religious organizations में इधर उधर सब जगह कि इनके पास जाओ उनके पास जाओ. It's various spiritual organizations. बाद में मैंने realize किया self-realization अगर जो life का नियम है तो वहाँ पे जहाँ आप जाते हैं स्पिरिचुअल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में ये तो उसके सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन के अगेंस्ट है. क्योंकि वहाँ तो एक ही मैन होता है. गॉड सब कुछ एक ही मैन होता है. ही विल नॉट लेट यू गेट योर सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन. बिकॉज अगर जो आपने अपना सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन पा लिया फिर तो आप वहाँ नहीं बैठोगे. तो फिर तो आप जान जाओगे क्या सच में है सच है. सो दैट कई बार क्या होता है कि फेलियर्स एंड एडवर्सिटीज मेक योर लाइफ. एंड आई ऑलवेज रिकमेंड दैट व्हेनेवर वी फेस एनी फेलियर्स एंड एडवर्सिटीज इन द लाइफ we should improve, learn something, develop ourselves, read, and कभी भी जिंदगी में हार नहीं माननी चाहिए. Never give up in your life. That's it.
It was honest, and I'm sure everyone sitting in the room can relate to, because everyone has plenty of problems, and whenever we have faced that setback, it's called, problems are actually a skateboard for your growth opportunities. that's the time when we sit and reflect and we introspect, like what Mr. Deepak said, that it's the time when we want to develop ourselves, and that's where his journey of becoming a learning and developing like organizer started. So problems are there's a Japanese philosopher called Dr. Daisaku, and he said that treat problems as badge of honors, because they will take you ahead and not the good times alone. So my second question to you would be, once you started your journey, you decided to quit your corporate job after this incident, and then your course, your leadership journey moved towards social causes and towards learning and development, and then today you are heading DMA as the chairman of the ESG committee. So how was your this transition journey from a corporate leadership to an ESG leadership? Any words on that?
Yes, yeah, before that, but as you said that I left my job in 2016 December. So actually जब हम 2008 में ये सब मैंने पढ़ाई whatever I started, ये एक आदत बन गई, habit बन गई, and then in 2009 ये point मैं जरूर बोलूँगा कि 2009 में क्या हुआ, 2008 में संजय you remember, October November में Lehman Brothers happens. And my company was in the real estate company, so it was huge recession, and it was noticed, and ऐसा लग रहा था कि बस कंपनी जाएगी, सब कुछ जाएगा, बहुत मुश्किल लग रहा, सब कुछ बहुत मुश्किल लग रहा. Things move on. बस जनवरी 2009, फरवरी, मार्च, अप्रैल आया, अप्रैल 2009. Things थोड़ी normalize होनी शुरू हो गई, थोड़ी things normalize होनी शुरू हो गई. And friends, I'm not boasting this thing. I just इस बात को convince करने के लिए हम लोग इस बात को समझें कि वो जो मैंने जर्नी शुरू की थी 2007 में, कि जब प्रमोशन नहीं हुआ था, तो 2008 में तो चलो उन्होंने ऐसे ही कर दिया. 2009 में क्या हुआ, रिसेशन था, एंड कंपनी सेड नो प्रमोशन. बट वो मेरी जर्नी चल रही थी. उस 2 साल में मैंने डिसाइड किया था कि मैंने अपनी कंपनी में कुछ अदर इन माय डिपार्टमेंट अदर टीम मेंबर्स वर देयर, उनको भेजा लर्निंग के लिए, पर्सनल डेवलपमेंट जो भी था. उस अप्रैल 2009 में कंपनी आई बिकेम द HOD ऑफ माय डिपार्टमेंट एंड आई वाज गिवन डबल प्रमोशन. सो मैं ये बात इसलिए कह रहा हूँ कि जब आप एक पाथ पे चलते हैं तो मिरेकल्स होते हैं, एंड व्हेन यू हैव पॉजिटिव माइंडसेट तो कुछ ना कुछ होता है. और थोड़ा सा आगे बढ़े, थोड़ा सा और आगे बढ़े तो इन सब चीज़ों की आदत पड़ गई. फिर 2016 में लगा कि यार ये तो अब बहुत हो गया, कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर में रह लिए, तो इतना कुछ सीखना है तो कुछ ना कुछ डिफरेंट करते हैं. और एक दो स्पीकिंग असाइनमेंट्स मिलने शुरू हो गए, तो लगा यार इसी को कंटिन्यू करेंगे, प्रैक्टिस करेंगे, थोड़ा टाइम रहेगा तो और इसी लाइफ को आगे बढ़ाएंगे. सो देन वी रीच्ड हियर. I delivered various motivational professional development sessions, and today I reached here because of my learning and development, because that happens कहीं से spark आया, God ने help करी, जिसने भी help करी. अगर जब उस चक्कर में पड़ जाते, फालतू चक्कर में तो सकता है लाइफ भी खराब हो जाती.
Very interesting, and that's why I say life is all about the journey and not a destination. So we may set milestones for us, in terms of, my this promotion, my that job, buying a house or buying a car. But the journey to reach that milestone is actually the journey which we should cherish, because that will bring out literally the juice out of us. So thank you for sharing that. And since morning we have been hearing this term called conscious leadership. And also the relationship between governance and dharma. So my question to you next is that how do you see the relationship between consciousness and leadership in driving good, or rather superior governance, and how can it help India become a developed nation?
Yes, we discussed in the morning inaugural session also that we see in the world one country has waged war against another country. And Russia-Ukraine war में, I was reading that $1,000 billion have been spent so far, and lost of huge life, humanity. So when we are a leader of a country, or we are a leader in a company, in a corporate sector, and if when we do something जिसका हम उसका रिजल्ट हम ये नहीं देखते कि उसका रिपरकशंस क्या होगा, सो वी बिकम अनकॉन्शियस, हमारी चेतना लूज हो जाती है. When Buddha got enlightenment, someone asked him, "Are you God?" He said, "No, I am not God. मेरी consciousness जाग रही है." So मैं समझता हूँ कि जब हमारी consciousness जाग जाती है, तो then we become true leader. And as a leader, then I see कि मेरा कोई भी action ऐसा ना हो कि वो humanity के, देश के, world के against जाए. उस action की वजह से कोई suffering ना हो, and my action should develop my nation, my organization. Because in India we have seen various organizations collapse in the last 10 years. Various organizations and employees have suffered a lot. So why it happened? Because we took wrong decisions and because we are unconscious. So we need to become conscious that and we need conscious leadership in fact. And आप कहें कि conscious leadership क्या है? I explained in the morning itself. When we transcend beyond our body and mind and look inside, in the pandemic, I used to receive WhatsApps आते थे हमारे पास कि हम बाहर तो निकल नहीं सकते pandemic में, तो क्या करें? Go inside. So we should have used that period to go deeper inside, find ourselves, find our higher self, find the consciousness. So I believe, my dear friends, that if Buddha meditated for 8 years, he was a normal human being, he became Buddha, and then Mahatma Gandhi also, he was able to realize himself, his higher self, he was Mahatma. Similarly, Mahavir, I am Jain, Mahavir, he did tapasya, he became God. Many times, in my relations, I prefer Buddha's teaching. मैं कई बार बोलता हूँ ना, बोलते हैं जैन हो गए, बुद्धिज्म की बात करते हैं, तो ये सब बातें तो I mean बुद्धा का जब मैंने पढ़ा था, it is a thought. He was the first psychologist in the world who just said that keep your mind pure to live a good life. And purity of mind is that your mind should be full of love and compassion, full of kindness, full of generosity, all those positive thoughts. That gives you creativity, that gives you success, and it gives you huge success. My conviction is that if you are pure, your mind is pure, it gives you huge success. Many times we go reverse. We try to get enlightenment through torturing our mind, through doing fast. But Buddha ने शुरू में यही किया था. Ultimately he realized that the enlightenment का रास्ता mind है, body नहीं है. जब mind pure होगा, तो body अपने आप ठीक हो जाएगी. Yes.
Thank you so much. And rightly said, an enlightened mind basically is a mind free of illusions. So connecting the fireside chat to ESG, because we cannot afford to not talk about ESG here. So what role does good governance play in achieving India's net zero goals?
Yes, of course, हम सुबह से यही डिस्कस कर रहे हैं. We need good governance, not only in the listed organization. We need good governance even in the small organization. In the reigns in the Delhi, there one episode happens where in the basement we lost 3 lives. तो कहीं ना कहीं तो good governance lacking होगी वहाँ पे. कहीं ना कहीं तो good governance lacking होगी वहाँ पे. कहीं ना कहीं तो each and every small organization need to care about the good governance to face the climate crisis, the net zero challenge, and the infrastructure we read and watch in the news that 12 bridges collapsed in the Bihar because of all those floods. So कहीं ना कहीं तो governance lacking होगी. In the airport also there was some damage happened, and then a few such things. So if we should be ready to face this climate challenge, it may bring more problems to us. And हम लोग तो चलो यहाँ बैठ के बच जाएंगे, पर ultimately suffer कौन है? Poor. वो afford नहीं कर पाएंगे. So friends, again, we need to follow good governance in each and every organization to face this climate change and this problem. And that is why somehow ESG, when we got the opportunity to head the ESG, so somehow जो हमारा वो अपना learning and development motivation, it helped me to motivate the corporate sector, the other forums, that ESG is the mantra now.
Absolutely. So, we have heard the panel talking about how corporate governance, how governance in fact is important in the social sector, and also how corporate governance is important for the listed entities as well as the unlisted entities. But I would like to have your opinion on what do you think that how social sector especially can help us achieve the sustainable development goals.
Yeah, I mean, social sector, it is a huge section of our society. Development sector, social sector, हमने अभी NGO governance की बात भी की थी in one of the previous session. So, all the development sector, underprivileged society, we need to educate them. We need to outreach our ESG activities in all those social sector for the less privileged, for the community. We need to educate them, and it is very important. And then, जैसे हम सुबह भी हमने discuss किया कि we need to have an equal distribution of CSR fund in all over India. If Maharashtra has Maharashtra में industry लगी हुई है, आपने employment भी दिया, there are huge employment because of the industry setup, and then you are जो आपका CSR fund है, वो भी हम महाराष्ट्र में ही सारा touch कर रहे हैं. Maximum we spend in Maharashtra, and I believe other rich states, they are spending all the amount in your state only. So we should consider Bihar and Jharkhand also. And मेरे को अभी मेरी टीम ने aspirational districts की list दी थी, तो maximum aspirational districts बिहार और झारखंड में हैं. और ज़्यादातर ऑफिसर्स, IAS ऑफिसर्स, इवन CSR हेड्स बिहार में हैं. पर ये पॉइंट अभी तक उठाया नहीं गया कि बिहार में हम सिर्फ 2% या 2% से भी कम CSR फंड का खर्चा कर रहे हैं. और मेरे को इसलिए आया क्योंकि मैं थोड़ा सा बिहार में ट्रेवल किया है. महावीर बुद्धा बोथ गॉट एनलाइटनमेंट इन बिहार, तो वहाँ जाना रहता है. बिकॉज मेरे को ऐसा भी लगता है कि जहाँ पर इन बड़े बड़े लोगों ने मेडिटेशन किया था, वहाँ पर वाइब्रेशंस अभी भी है. यू गो देयर, यू सिट एंड यू फील दोज वाइब्रेशंस. तो सोशल सेक्टर वी नीड टू इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ चाहिए हमको. वी नीड टू इंक्लूड द सोशल सेक्टर इन अवर ग्रोथ. तो सोशल डिस्पैरिटी है, ह्यूज इनकम inequality है, उसको हमको दूर करना पड़ेगा. It is very very important. The government, the big corporate, they have to think out of box idea how we can reduce this disparity, because we all know 5% of the people, even less, 2% of the people owning the maximum wealth in India, and बाहर तो और भी ज़्यादा है. ये जो हम टेक कंपनीज को लेके बड़े हमारा चाव रहता है, these all tech companies, they have become larger than the countries in fact, and US has decided that it will break Google into 4-5 companies so that उनका जो large size है वो reduce हो जाए.
Yes, that was very insightful. And being conscious of time, my last question to you would be, looking ahead, what do you think what's your mission for TMA ESG committee, because all your efforts so far under your chairmanship, today we have this amazing conference that we are having. Earlier in the last year also we have had great events. So what is your plan for coming times for this committee?
Yeah, because ESG is the future. In fact, outside India it is more prevalent. So we have decided, our ESG committee have decided that we will explore more and more work in ESG. We are approaching now academia. Last week also we signed one MOU with a big university. We have decided to approach more and more university doing ESG and awareness for students, for faculty, and corporate sector में जहाँ भी हम जा सकते हैं, in various organizations, wherever we go, we discussed that how we can collaborate for moving ahead in our ESG activities. Sanjay is with me. He is supporting me a lot. I really appreciate his personal belonging, his emotional involvement. That Deepak, really we are doing good. It really helps me. Mr. K.K. Sharma, they are all helping me in this journey. But when we started DMA, पाठा साहब भी यहाँ पर हैं, छवि जी भी यहाँ पर हैं. DMA was not such a big organization when we started ESG committee, and we are requesting people to come to our committee. So ज़्यादा क्या होता है कि CIA and big organizations, they attract good professionals, but we were able to attract good professionals, and this committee is really doing good. and we have huge plans for our ESG committee. Few of the prominent institutions like ICSI, we are in discussion to do collaborations, do some activities. जितना हम लोग कर सकते हैं हम लोग करेंगे. कई बार हम सोचते हैं सब it is happening everywhere, सब हो रहा है. अब यहाँ पर और भी there are other institutions that they are doing ESG activities and all. पर जितना हम कर सकते हैं हम ऐड कर रहे हैं. हम यहाँ पे आए हैं तो 10% लोगों को कि हम कुछ उनके माइंड में कुछ बात डाल सकें ESG की. So we will continue our journey and we'll seek all of your support. आप लोग कुछ भी help करना चाहें, you're all welcome in whatever way. In fact, Vidhi is also the ESG committee member and she is really helping us a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope you all enjoyed the exercise.
जैन साहब थोड़ा शर्माए हैं. इन्होंने डीएमए को डेफिसिट से सरप्लस किया है.
In terms of finance मैंने इतना ज़्यादा अच्छा नहीं किया, पर in terms of awareness जरूर किया होगा. सभी जगह पर है. In terms of awareness जरूर किया होगा because कुछ people तो ऐड हुए हैं, लोगों तो ऐड हुए हैं, लोगों ने तारीफ तो की है. बट इसका श्रेय, इनफैक्ट मैं आपको ये बात बताऊँ जरूर, मैं कुछ और ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस का भी मेंबर हूँ. There I was not allowed to do independently such things. But in DMA, our president has allowed us that he said कि ये तो अच्छी बात है, आप जितना प्रोग्राम करो उतनी अच्छी बात है. मैं नहीं आ पाया तो कोई बात नहीं. अमित जी अभी शायद बाहर हैं. अमित जी as a secretary and president योगेश जी, they have supported us fully. Do it, जितना आप कर सकते हैं करें. I mean let the awareness happens and DMA also grow. That's it.
Great. So stronger DMA ESG committee. We'll close it now and thank you everyone for listening to us silently.
भारत देश वाली बात थी ना बिहार की, उसमें एक ट्रेन का इंजन जो है वो डर गया ब्रिज पे जाने से और वो उतर के पटरी से उतर के फील्ड में चला गया.
क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं?
आपकी बात just adding something. ये भी हो गया.
Yeah, DMA is organizing one event on it is again supply chain sustainability and all with FMS. So Mr. Partha is leading for that event. Can we clap for Mr. Partha? 21st September. Yeah. We will send invite to all. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks to Vidhi. In fact, I mean, let us clap for her, please. Please. तो शर्मा जी को जितने इनाम दिए जाए उससे कम है. उन्होंने हर एक सेशन में क्वेश्चन पूछा है. अगर शर्मा जी पैनलिस्ट होते तो सिर्फ यही बोलते हैं. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, requesting you to please facilitate with the ma'am.
Yes, please.
ये है और वो CSR में बहुत पैसे कमा रही है और खर्च कर रही है. वो हम महाराष्ट्र में कर रही है, वो बिहार में क्यों नहीं करती है, झारखंड में क्यों नहीं करती? I differ with you. अगर एक कंपनी का बिजनेस मॉडल ऐसा है, ROI उसकी ऐसी है, why you should force him to?
I said महाराष्ट्र में आपने एक इंडस्ट्री लगाई, तो you are giving employment to the in महाराष्ट्र. And महाराष्ट्र में जब आपको 2% CSR फंड्स देने हैं, तो जो लेस प्रिविलेज सोसाइटी है, वो फंड्स आप बिहार में भी तो खर्च कर सकते हैं. तो महाराष्ट्र में डबल खर्चा हो गया ना. आपने डबल एक तो एम्प्लॉयमेंट दिया, ऊपर से CSR फंड्स भी आपने महाराष्ट्र में खर्च कर दिया. चलो आधा वहाँ खर्च कर दो, बिहार में भी तो दो. वहाँ पे बहुत कम.
You're right. That was an inspiring conversation on consciousness leadership. Thank you for moderating.
Moving forward, we have section 4, governance and the role of professional and small organizations towards facilitating climate consciousness. We have Dr. Supriya Sharma, the ambassador, for executive director of BPO Business Services Private Limited, Dr. Veena Lavania, CSR consultant and advisor, Vice President with Waste Private Limited, former Assistant Professor and Program Lead. We would also like to invite Ms. Chavi Prabhakar, NCDMA, visiting faculty to the Management Department at Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women. Dear speakers, please join us on the dais.
Chairing the Women Entrepreneur Awards and Conference for the last 2 years. And this year, so I'm, already inviting all of you. 20th December is the date fixed. So, invitations are going to go out to everyone. And I look forward to, so I'm looking forward to participation coming from here. So please do tell everyone. And we look forward to as much participation as possible. So that's towards inclusivity and diversity, which is again very important in the context of what we have been talking. Thank you.
Everyone, and I'm thanking you in advance for the patient listening that you're going to give to some already in-store gyan, which has been in the air since morning. And there was a comment about, it's an all-women session, so I'll take the privilege of speaking in Hindi also, if 1 or 2 sentences if you don't mind, since it's Hindi Divas. So the fact is कि सुबह से हम वही देख रहे थे कि inaugural session जो था, it was an all-men session, and then even the session after that, फिर थोड़ा-थोड़ा we started having some women representation, and finally we have a chance कि we have this all women session, तो इसमें तो हम कोई interruption नहीं चाहेंगे इधर से यहाँ So excuse on that, and at the same time I think it's also a क्योंकि कितना भी कहेंगे society progress हो गई है and we are advancing in various regards, but still the fact is कि you have to ask for it, then only you get it. Otherwise you don't get it. So yeah, thank you. So coming to the session, which is more precisely about governance in educational institutions, cooperatives, autonomous bodies, small enterprises, etc. And I have 2 stalwarts here with me who are going to enlighten myself, because as I told you the last time when we met, I'm a very normal citizen who is in the process of learning, so I always take advantage of knowledge whenever I get it. So these 2 women are here with me, and I'll begin the session by asking them as to governance was decided in the morning by one of our panelists, Mr. Sanjay Gupta. Governance is a set of rules. Okay, but when it comes to the set of rules, Dr. Beena ji, how does it incorporate in our own living on a day-to-day basis? Okay, we understand from a company's point of view, we are talking about governance as a set of rules as to how to run your organizations and how to move forward with it. But what changes do we bring in inside in order to ensure that the organizations that we are part of, we are able to bring about the impact that is expected when it comes to using a heavily responsible term that we used here. We are saying at this conference that we are empowering governance. That is big. Empowering governance. Governance always is an empowered term, but we are talking about empowering governments. So, Dr. Beena, please throw some light on what is it that is required from inside of us that we can empower governance when it comes to the institutions, whether they're autonomous bodies or professional institutions or educational ones.
Thank you so much for the super start for this particular session, which is all women session today. And this day is very auspicious, as दिन बहुत सुंदर है क्योंकि आज के दिन हम लोग हिंदी दिवस मना रहे हैं. और आज सुबह जब मुझे एक शुभकामना आई तो उसमें लिखा था ये मातृभाषा नहीं है, मतलब सिर्फ भाषा, मात्र मतलब सिर्फ भाषा नहीं है, ये मातृभाषा है, ये हमारी मदर टंग है. तो बहुत अच्छा, आज के दिन मैं भी इसलिए लिबर्टी लेती हूँ कि हम लोग अपनी भाषा में बात कर रहे हैं. आपने अभी ये बात कही कि गवर्नेंस, वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ गवर्नेंस इन द कंपनीज, राइट? In the listed companies, non-listed companies, in the SMEs and various firms. But at the same time, if you were talking about, if you want to know about the individual level, from my perspective, I believe, same rules apply. In what way? So there is, fairness in your conduct. When you're working in the organization, fairness is very, very important. मैंने कई बार देखा है जब मैं पहले यूनिवर्सिटी में काम कर रही थी, आई एम शेयरिंग इट हियर, इनफैक्ट ये थोड़ा विमेन सेंट्रिक भी हो गया है। 5:30 का टाइम था एंड द मीटिंग वाज कॉल्ड फॉर एन इवेंट की नेक्स्ट अपकमिंग इवेंट है, so all the faculties were summoned and in fact there was one program leader, she just entered the room and there was group vice chancellor who said आपको तो शायद रोटियां बनानी होंगी, आप जा सकती हैं। So, जब आप किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए काम कर रहे हैं और आप प्री सेट एक माइंडसेट से आते हैं और इस तरीके से आप एड्रेस करते हैं, मुझे नहीं लगता कि आपका जो गवर्नेंस है या आपका जो अपना कंडक्ट है दैट इज गुड like we were talking about the good governance, right? I'm talking about the good conduct also. So it's in your conduct, the fairness should be there, the transparency should be there, right? And as we were talking about governance, we were talking about stakeholder management somewhere. So stakeholderism should also be there. We should be democratic in a way to allow other stakeholders to share their experiences and accordingly make the decision in the organization. So this is my take on the individual aspect, vis-a-vis governance in the corporate.
That's interesting. Ms. Chavi, could you throw some light on how it goes in line with the self-discipline? I mean, does self-discipline have any connection with the kind of governance we go and showcase out there in the organizations that we are part of?
See, I think, so good evening everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and of course a pleasure to be with two empowered ladies. So all the change makers are here. And the question you asked is very interesting, Supriya, because I think the starting and ending point of everything is discipline. And you'll be surprised, it's so a little bit, so I wanted to be introduced today as visiting faculty for the only technical women's university in India. It was the first in Asia. It's called Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women. Part of DTU, the sister concern. Now, the interesting part is, I am an ex-banker and a woman entrepreneur, and after I quit banking, so I've been invited, I always get invited to various business schools, universities, so I started getting associated with them as guest, going for a guest lecture, they would call me for their conferences and so on. I went for a guest lecture and I didn't even know that this institute, it's not an institute, it's a university, exists. Now, see, these are things which are there, it's happening so when you talk of, at a larger level, if you look at the larger picture, a lot of things are there. But I think it all starts with, one is, am I aware of it? Are we, are our children aware of it? Are we creating the awareness? Are we creating the sense that, each one of us, there is an equal level playing field, which has been created. Are we even aware? Now, I'm talking more and I'm sorry, it seems to have become a woman panel, but I'm taking it with the, context of governance. So, many a times things are there, they exist. But, that sense of discipline when you're saying as an individual, are we taking that step forward as an individual to A, be aware of the ecosystem around us, and two, to make sure that people are also, I am doing my bit in making others aware of this. And as a woman, and I have about 28, 29 years work ex behind me. And when we talk of this, so the first, only one thing I wanted to say here, whenever I have asked any student, so I've been in this space now for about 8 years, because I quit banking 8 years back. Whenever I've asked anyone, who is the best manager that you know? I can tell you 98% of the time it has, students across, male, and I mean men and women have said my mother. Now, where is that coming from? It's actually that sense of inherent discipline which, you know, we have seen in our parents. See, I will extend it to our parents. No? And so, when you talk of governance, you know, just now I was told, oh yeah, you know, there's this all-woman panel, you have to be there. I haven't prepared anything. I didn't know what I have to speak. I was looking at some interesting facts, and when we are talking of climate change, we are talking of governance, ESG, no? And then you realize, so from where is this change going to come? Who is going to be the harbinger of change? So it is all going to, in the end, start with what I and mine. That means what I will do, what I will inculcate, learn from the ecosystem, and I will, you know, share that knowledge with mine. It could be my students, it could be my colleagues, it could be, with the audience. No? So that's how
you actually hit the bullseye, and now this brings me to the next level of it, because she talked about when we are born and we see our parents. That is our first level of governance understanding. And then we are admitted to a school, and then we grow forward, moving to some nice professional institutions or educational institutions. Where, Dr. Beena, would you like to tell us what are the steps that as a professional institution or as an educational institution we can take in order to bring about the change that we are looking for, or in order to empower governance as we're talking at this particular conference?
Right. Well, I think the universities or the colleges, the educational institutions, they are the basis for the social change, for any change, because education is the basis that empowers, that builds the next generation. So of course, these universities, colleges, they are very, very important in bringing about the change or bringing about better governance through the research, through the innovations, through they should cultivate, or they should have that kind of culture, build that kind of culture in the university where the research and the innovations are the important mainstay of the university education, right? And also between the education institutions and the corporate side, I think they need to exchange a lot of between them what is required on the part of the corporate side, because what happens at times we have seen that students are completing their education but they're still not fit for the organization. That gap is there. So we really need to understand this thing, and this kind of stakeholderism or the research. In fact, in US universities, I've seen that most of the time the researchers are supported, funded by the corporate institutions. Why? Because the gap is there, the requirement is there. That is what in India that is missing to a certain extent. We really need to build on this kind of value system in our education. So that is very, very important. And I believe there are three important aspects in today's time. Whenever we are talking, since morning we have been having these sessions, plenary sessions on the governance, ESG. So what are the three important points or three important concepts that we need to understand and bring in our organizations, whichever, educational or cooperative, because there was word cooperative also, right? So that is innovation. That is very, very important. In fact, आज ही मैं एक जगह पढ़ रही थी तो एक एग्जाम्पल था गुजरात का, जहाँ पे एक गांव ने सोलर सिस्टम को यूज किया अपने इरिगेशन सिस्टम को बेटर करने के लिए, so these kind of innovations happening at the grassroots level also. So in innovation, inclusion, again we have been hearing this financial inclusion, or gender-wise we are talking about the inclusivity. So this is also very, very important. If we are talking about 2047 as an important year for India, जहाँ हम विकसित भारत के लिए हम लोग अपनी परिकल्पना कर रहे हैं, उसके लिए ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि इंक्लूसिविटी को हम पूरी तरीके से लागू करें. And then sustainability again, sustainability again, that is this word, this phrase, this particular buzzword that's being overtly used everywhere and anywhere. Sustainable packaging, sustainable practices, sustainable throughout. So I believe these three points are very, very important for for our generation to understand that if we really want to give a better world for the generations to come, so we really need to work on innovation, and that innovation which is going to help the people at the grassroots level. I give you one example, there are 100 examples. Then inclusion, as in we have to bring in, women, that part of the society, that section of the society which is not in the mainstream, to the mainstream through financial inclusion, various other practices, and that is all from my side.
Indeed, indeed. So that was about the educational institutions and some more light on the cooperatives and the corporates as a whole. But I'll move further since I was following the process, and in fact, I'll just take a step back. And to what Dina ji said, I could in fact attest to that and could also contrast the education system between India and abroad, having studied in 4 different continents. But in respect of time, because there's another trend here in India which is very popular कि हाँ यहाँ तो बोल दो जो बोलना है, फिर बाहर मिलो, बाहर देखते हैं. तो मुझे 20 minutes बोला गया है, and अगर मैं 20 minutes में नहीं यहाँ से उठ कर जाऊँगी तो फिर बाहर देखेंगे मुझे. So that's why in respect of time, I'll directly move on to Chhabi ji. And as I was following chronological order, then we start the governance at home, and then we move to the educational institutions, and then we would actually move on to the autonomous bodies or other small enterprises of that regard. And since you have the banking background, probably you'll be the better person to talk about bodies like RBI, etc. What do they have to do with regard to empowering governance, which is today's topic?
So I think, that kind of sums up the whole day also, in a sense, that while we all, and it's being driven, it's being repeated again and again that governance, ESG, and all of this is now being driven down. So it's being driven down through policies, corporate policies, through rules, regulations. Of course, in all of this, the regulator always plays a very large role. Because if, as they say, if you are not being monitored, if you are not being watched, you would do as you wish. But yeah, what is I think the crux of everything that we have been talking about, again boils down to I and me. See, we are all, I have been a banker, I have seen the biggest of frauds happening. And the frauds are done by people we know. I have had frauds done by my team members. What do you tell? There is nothing to be told. Everyone knows everything. These are the rules, and then the moral framework. See, one is the social upbringing. The social upbringing, I think today, because of the awareness that is being created by the educational institutions, even at a corporate level, the induction programs, etc., that we are put through. They are trying to do a complete, 360-degree kind of training, and the training is also ongoing. True. So it's not that I started working 20 years back, so they say now she doesn't need to be trained. We need to be re-educated, reboot again, and I would say, re-engineered. So the organizations need it, individuals need it. But in the end, what I think is, all of this is controlled or is in the hands of us. And what Deepak Jain ji said, that individual level, that, where we are trying to achieve. It could be growth. I don't say it could be spiritual growth, it could be moral growth, it could be, knowledge. See, I have seen knowledge is so powerful. If you are not out there trying to enhance our knowledge levels and our domain, skill levels, no, how can we, bring about the change in society? So when you throw figures, so I was looking at some figures. The last decade we have seen, it's the hottest decade in 1,25,000 years. Mind-boggling. I mean 1,25,000 years. No, it seems that, every...
I doubt if we have that data.
I'm just throwing the figures. I read. That it seems that oceans are absorbing heat, which is equivalent to 2 Hiroshima bombs every second. That is how much our planet is heating up.
Indeed.
And if you look at all these, then you are like, no, I will bring the change. So that I will bring the change starts from today only. Sabha was like, was everyone asking her for her visiting card, and she said, here's the QR code. I don't use visiting card. And I also said, yes, I have to bring that change which I have been planning but haven't managed. Very small. So I think small steps taken by each one of us. So the bigger institutions. So in our university where I am now teaching, we have happiness classes, science of happiness. Now, did we ever think that we need to be taught science of happiness? But happiness is coming at such a, I would say happiness is not coming easy to us. Why? So, all of this, I think, again, we will have to manifest it.
Exactly, and it's all within us. And it starts with us.
So the win-win situation we have to create is for us and our future generations. And we also have still a long time to go.
Exactly.
So,
thank you so much, Habibti, and thank you, Dr. Beena, for those wonderful comments. And again, gratitude to all of you for being present here. It's because of you that it's a successful event already. I'm declaring it well. I'm not waiting till the end for it to be declared as a successful event. But it has been. Thank you again. And most welcome. Is there any questions?
I'd like to add one statement which I
yes, sir.
Follow. We have not borrowed this planet from our ancestors. We have not inherited this planet from our ancestors. We have borrowed it from our children. Exactly. So we should give back to them a planet they deserve.
With interest. I think that is the final time for us to close our conference. Very nice.
My question is regarding women.
Absolutely, please.
मैं आपके बारे में चिंतित हूँ मैं
बहुत अच्छी बात है बताइए.
Mr. Mahesh Taneja. Mr. Mahesh Taneja, please, Sharma ji, please.
Since you are a banker, nice to hear your speech. 13%, 13%. In 2047, then we will say, then we will say Viksat.
Shivam.
What do you think will it reach to 50%?
Sir.
What policies, what education policies, what should be done for all?
I think we will take it separate. We will take it separate.
Yes.
Sharma ji, I have a long discussion. Sharma ji, a special prize to Sharma ji for the best question.
So Mr. Mahesh Taneja will facilitate. Madam Chari, Mr.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Pleasure. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Shivam, you are here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of EHS at ECM, Sriram Limited. Mr. Manoj Yadav, consultant at ECG and Climate Finance and a senior advisor on climate changes at GIC. Mr. Umang Watts, regional analyst for Asia Pacific and India representative for PRB UNEPFI, Dr. Shruti Sharma, Associate Professor at TERI, SAS.
Had some other engagement also, so we would like to close this session by 5 o'clock or so. That's the target I am taking, though the topic is very, very interesting and close to my heart. So in order to introduce, I think already we have been introduced without taking much time. I am KK Sharma. I work with DCM Shriram and I am heading EHS and sustainability in the organization. And fortunately, I am on the board also. So having 34 plus years of experience in various chemical industries as well as into EHS manufacturing and other functions. With that background, I think I have my co-panelists, the learned one, and very happy to see a very, very diverse, again, the panelists are with me right now. Three of us, three are women and 2 men. That is something, that's the change which I see over these years. To share with you, in our organization also, we have taken a target of improving our diversity with a special launch of a program called WIDE, which means we are inclusive, diverse and equitable. That's something which is there in the mindset of all the leadership, which I see that progress in last 2 years' time from 3% to almost 6%. Because being in chemical industry, it's a big challenge. But having that mindset in the very first place is important, the first step. As we have been hearing, though I could not attend in the morning, but the very first step you take for any ESG initiative is something which is a positive step. Like Mr. Jain was talking about the problems will remain. The ECG, if it is a wavering one, then only the person will be alive. If it is a straight line, nothing. So problems will come. How positively we are facing those problems is something which I think we should all have in mind at all times. So that's with that. I think let me introduce the co-panelists. I have with me on my right Umang Vats, who is with the I think regional advisor, regional analyst with the PRB UNEP. And on my left hand side is Tanya Singhal, who is founder and CEO of Minzo Carbon. I must share with you. This is the app I have been using for last 3 months now. You can download it from any of your Google as well as App Store, and this will tell you how much carbon we are emitting daily. So thank you very much, Tanya. I'm really using it, and I come to know that daily I am having some 60 kgs of CO2 emission, and on monthly basis it is sometimes 1200 and sometimes it is 1800 based on my travel.
I'm sitting with a climately conscious, evolved analyst.
So with that background, I think that is why I wanted to make sure that this information is shared with all of you, so that you can also initiate this process in the times to come. Then on my again right hand side, Dr. Shruti Sharma, who is known to me now for last couple of months, and very much active on YouTube in terms of raising awareness on ESG and sustainability. Compliments to you, Shruti, for that. And she is the professor from TERI. And on my left hand side is Manoj Yadav, who is a consultant in ESG and climate finance. So I think we have a wonderful co-panelist, and setting the target, this tone for this session, which is just transitions and moving towards a net zero world. We talked about Vikshit Bharat. I firmly believe that net zero is the target which I think through Paris Agreement all the countries have undertaken. And so is our country, which has taken a net zero target of 2070. I believe that it is very much achievable the way the things are progressing in India. Nobody thought even a year back that we will be at 175 gigawatt of renewable by this April 2024, which is a commendable, I think, achievement by our government in terms of implementing this as a actionable item, which is a step towards net zero world. But having said that, I think just transition is something which we need to understand what exactly, I think very, very appropriate for the organizer to include this aspect of just transition, which is nothing but everyone has to be included in this entire journey. Like we were talking about the ESG awareness. Nobody should be left out from this ESG awareness campaign that we are right now leading. So that's how this just transition means that ultimately we have to ensure that all impacted stakeholders are included in this, whether it is workers, communities, or any agency who are involved in this entire process. That's something is very, very important. And this ultimately has now created a broader societal dimension which includes environmental justice, social equity, and human rights. And what are the sectors that ultimately this transition is happening? The very first one is the energy sector. The second one is manufacturing and industry. The third one is transportation, of course, and last but not the least is agriculture. So these four sectors are the key where this energy transition that we are talking about in terms of net zero is very, very key for implementing whatever initiatives are undertaken. In terms of, I think, various principles that are being talked about in terms of implementing the strategies that are important for this just transition. The first one is the social dialogue and participation, where workers and other stakeholders, communities, industries, and even the government should participate in this discussion of transition. Then there is a job creation and economic diversification. That is something which is important. The third one is protection of vulnerable communities, which is important because of this transition. The vulnerable communities are going to be impacted, so how best our policies are taking care of those vulnerable communities that we are going to talk about in this session. And equitable policy design. We have been talking about how government policies are ultimately adopting all these transitions so that it is equitable, so that though emissions are controlled, but not at the cost of someone. And because, these developed countries, they have already emitted of their share. Now it should not be a burden for the developing countries. So that load, financial load, should not be ultimately be on the developing countries. So that's the responsibility which developed countries have to undertake. Then last but not the least is environmental integrity and climate action that is important, where the scientific recommendations are to be kept in mind when we are setting the goals for this transition. Now I move to the very first question that comes to my mind is, which I would like to pose to Dr. Shruti, is about vulnerable communities. What actions can be taken so that it is ensured that no vulnerable community is left out when this energy transition is taking?
Okay. Very valid question, Mr. Sharma. And when we talk about transition, it has to be just. I think you have beautifully explained. And when we say that, it has to be inclusive of everybody. Everybody has to be taken along. When we talk about our net zero, which is 2070 is the target which we have taken. When we look at it from the vulnerable community perspective, where we talk about including the base of pyramid, the underprivileged ones, the ones who are non-taxpayer also. We talk about there is, when you look at it from an Indian perspective, there is $10 trillion which will, as a finance, which has to be there when we look at the transition, which is towards, when we look at it from the inclusive transition, where we talk about. It's no longer about energy efficiency. When we are looking at it from a just transition perspective, we are talking about energy trilemma, which is that energy has to be affordable, accessible, sustainable, and secure. So these are the broader parameters when we look at the just transition one, that affordability, accessibility to even the rural sector. If we look at it from what we've been discussing since morning, when we look at it from the ESG perspective, we are the privileged few sitting in this room who are talking about the subject. But when you go outside and when you look at the vulnerable community, where the question is of
roti, kapda or makan, or it's like, the basic physiological need, food to eat, so there is, and then you talk to them about climate change, nobody's going to listen to you. And that's the biggest challenge. And for them to get a buy-in from the vulnerable communities is a big challenge. So there has to be a business case for the vulnerable communities. When we look at from the business case, there has to be sustainable livelihoods which have to be provided. So I would quickly talk about one. There is a finance which is $10 trillion which is to be needed as far as the just transition is concerned. Where are we going to get this finance from? This is again a big challenge. When you look at, when we talk about India, as compared to, there are a lot of arguments which are there, that we are not the ones who are responsible for the climate catastrophe or the impact of climate change which we have created. Our emission intensity is just 1.6, which is way less than US and China. So why should we stop the development process? Now we need to understand, when we look at it from the just transition perspective, that it's not a country's carbon. Anybody emitting carbon, it would be, it's everybody's, I think, carbon. So it's like, we are the ones who are most vulnerable, and that is why our Prime Minister talks about climate equity and justice most. Because we have when you look at it from our majority of population is below the poverty line, and they are the ones who are majorly impacted, the vulnerable communities. So we need to offer them jobs. And when we say jobs, again, in the previous session, there is a pure skill gap deficit, because these are green jobs we are talking about. So there will be new set of jobs, 50 million green jobs would be coming. But do we have the talent? Do we have, the skill to train them? That's also a challenge. So we need reskilling of people. When we look at it, India is the second largest coal producer in the world. Most of our energy development, when we look at it from a just transition perspective, is 75% of our energy requirements are through coal. So if we are so dependent on coal and we are looking at decarbonization, how is it possible? Plus, when you look at regional problems, so regional, you have Jharkhand, you have Chhattisgarh, and you have Odisha. Now these are the states where you are mostly the economy is based on coal plants. So when you're talking about decarbonization and just transition, what about the communities? What about the livelihoods of these people, the vulnerable communities? So what are the actions which you are taking, rather than when we talk about net zero target, and we are talking about inclusivity, vulnerable communities? So are we preparing, giving them some kind of other form of livelihood, which will replace the current livelihood which comes through being employed in the coal plants? So what kind of reskilling measures are there to prepare them for the 50 million jobs? Whether we do have those financial, which is 10 million, so all of these things where we educate them, that there is a buy-in from these vulnerable communities, so that they start, participating in this. So that is where there's a lot of things which have to be considered.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and also sharing the challenges of how these are overcome also. Thank you very much for sharing that. And now, moving on, I think my question to Tanya now, how businesses can contribute towards this energy transition that we are talking about in the times to come.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so, Sharma ji asked me a question that how businesses can help. I would like to make it larger and saying, how could the whole ecosystem come together to make something like this possible? And that's businesses, individuals, and the government. The only thing is, you are looking at a problem which is very far away. It's not something that's happening right now. Something which is important and not urgent becomes back of mind. So how do you make it top of mind? And that's the scenario today. उसको करने के दो तरीका है, या तो डंडा या इंसेंटिव, या तो अवार्ड दो या पिटाई करो. And that's exactly what is the situation today happening. So for businesses, there's an option that you go and actually save money by being sustainable. The whole concept of sustainability is the 3 R's: reduce, recycle, or reuse, which means use less, which means you save money. And once you start incorporating this, you actually realize that you're not just doing something for reporting, but you're actually doing something which changes ethos in your own business. But something like this has to happen top down. At the board level, as Sharmaji mentioned, he's at the board, he drives the agenda, the CEO, the CXOs. They have to think about it and they have to instill it in every level, in the ethos in which how their employees think, how their suppliers supply to them, how their used goods go to the customers. Because if you look at the spending, almost a vast majority of our investments are coming from industries, whether it's steel, whether it's coal, whether it's consumer goods, whether it's just energy. You know, they're all different businesses. So you have to use a combination of two tricks. One is the incentive of actually saving money, and two is the threat. The threat is of penalties, of being able to report what you are doing, and a combination of those help. But alone businesses can't do everything. What you need is the people to come along, which is why the businesses need to take their employees along with them in this journey. And how do you take your employees along? First is to educate them. If they understand their actions, only then they will take a decision, right? Understanding your daily things. You tell everybody kg CO2, yeah, 1.5 degree, 2 degree. समझ नहीं आता है, लगता है क्या हो जाएगा इससे? But you explain somebody to say, आप नोएडा से गुड़गांव जाते हैं ना, in a petrol car, आप एक पेड़ काट देते हैं. सिर्फ नोएडा से गुड़गांव की journey means 1 tree less. And then you leave an impression of the person, and then next meeting he'll think, oh, do I really need to go? Can I carpool? Can I do a VC? You know, and these are the small examples that you need to instill, because this collective action is where we're going to get. This is not something that we reach because of one person. We reach because of actions of a lot of us. Now we have reached in this what I call a decade of hope. कहते हैं ना, जब जागे तब सवेरा. अब हमें पता चला है कि we can actually make a change. But it's not one person, it's a collective group that needs to come in. So the governments, the people. And the third part, the corporates and the people. And the third part, which is very critical in this, is the governments. Why? Let's take renewable as an example. When I started 15 years ago in renewable, solar prices were 18 rupees a unit. At that time, no business will invest trillions of dollars into something that is not economical. That's where you need the government to step in. You know, put in the tax money to create a bridge gap so that you reach an economical solution. Once you are economical, today solar is 2.5 rupees, which is cheaper than coal. Now you are getting investment, because you can invest 100 rupees, 1000 rupees in CSR, but you cannot invest trillions of dollars. And that's why we need the economic case. So the government is our bridge gap, the corporates are the conscious mind, and the individuals are the doer. So it's collectively all three coming together to create this just transition and getting to our targets.
So nicely explained, Tanya. I think what you rightly said, it is the incentive and at the same time the penalty. So that there is a fear to comply with certain compliance. As we see also now, ESG also is taking a shape of compliance through either it is BRSR reporting or various standards that are coming up, either through assurance process, so that it is being really implemented as part of the compliance part also. But as far as incentives are concerned, this is something which has to be seen in various aspects, in various sectors also. Right now, the government is focusing more on the bigger players where these sectors are emitting maximum. But there is need to have, that's the thing we are talking about, the transition, where the smaller players are also to be taken into consideration, giving them the incentive. So now, moving on, I would now move to Umang now. I would like to understand from you about the significance of international cooperation in achieving this net zero targets that we plan to implement.
Thank you so much for this question, and I would like to take a step back. So in order to understand what exactly is happening in international forums on just transition, we need to understand when did just transition come into picture. So in 1990s, there was a huge crisis in America, and all the North American unions started voicing the rights of laborers who had just left their jobs after environmental protection laws, which started happening in North America. So it took 25 years for International Labour Organization to take notice of this and devise guidelines around it. And in 2016, Paris Agreement came into force. So what Paris Agreement do which other such, I would say, alliances failed to do? So Paris Agreement made it mandatory for its signatories to, of course, bring out the indices, take net zero targets.
So now I feel the question is not what exactly is happening at such international conferences, but how can we take these conversations further? So first thing, in my opinion, is development of green economy. So green economy, it has to be sustainable, it has to be equitable, and it has to be inclusive. Second thing is regionalization of the policies which are devised at such international conferences. So as a representative of UNIFY, we are already doing such regionalization in context of financial institutions. So we feel that each country is different and problems related to sustainability are hugely diversified. So we cannot have one agreement or we cannot have one policy which has been made some 10 years back which can solve all our problems. So the need is to regionalize such policies and then plan our activities accordingly in engagement with all the stakeholders. Also, just to add on to Dr. Sharma's question when she said that we don't know where the money, this 10 trillion will come for just transition. So I feel the first step to identify the answer to that question is where exactly our money is currently going. So we need to have a deep delve on how exactly are we using our money, what exactly are we doing on an individual level, like I think Ms. Singhal correctly told you that how exactly are we doing, what are our sustainability endeavors. So that is where I want to end this conversation.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now my last co-panelist about the sectors which are getting impacted because of this transition. Would like to hear from you, Manoj. What are the sectors that are mostly impacted by this transition, and what are the strategies that can be implemented to mitigate these impacts arising out of transition?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, Mr. Jain as well. Thank you. So I will say the short answer is that there are hard-to-abate sectors like steel, coal, cement, which are highly polluting. They are more at risk because they run the biggest transition risk. If we divide climate risks into two parts, we have the physical side of climate risks, which is the increased incidence, frequency, intensity, and severity, duration of extreme weather events like flash flood and drought and what have you, cyclones. On the other side, we have transition risk, which means we have locked-in investments, and it's not easy to just wean off those investments and move on to new asset class. So I will answer this in a way because I want to talk about the sector that's least talked about when it comes to transition to greener economy, which is agriculture, because it's supposedly green. We have steel, coal, all these things. The short answer is that there are initiatives like Tata Steel, who have internal carbon pricing. They're setting aside, they're taxing themselves and creating a corpus to transition to cleaner technologies. But then what about agriculture? Around 15% of methane emissions, CO2 equivalent emissions come from agriculture sector, and that requires sort of innovative financial instruments. Ms. Watts talked about Paris Agreement. The Article 6 of Paris Agreement talks about carbon-based mechanisms, and we have those mechanisms in the country where farmers can change their behavior towards water-saving technologies like AWD, alternate wetting and drying, and direct exterior dries. They can transition, but then they need to be incentivized, and these are some mechanisms which are there in policy as well as practice. So I will say, in summary, there are 5 things that needs to be understood well if we have to understand both hard-to-abate sector and I think the next follow-up question will be in terms of what solutions could be, if I may just quickly summarize. So 5 things. Policy and institutions. So we have policies like on a global scale we have a Paris Agreement. National level we have nationally determined contribution, which India submitted last year, the revised guidelines, which clearly talks about what steps where we want to go. Then we need to look at transition risk because there are locked-in investments and it's not so easy to just flip the situation around. The third one is climate finance, $2.5 trillion worth of investment is required between 2015 and 2030 if we were to achieve 2070 target, and that requires multiple sources of funding. So not just public finance but private finance, and then so that needs to be leveraged. The fourth one is technology. There is a lot of talk about carbon capture technology. I'm not a big fan, but we need to look at incremental steps towards those technologies. There's no massive one technology which is going to solve solutions. Dr. Sharma talked about the vulnerable communities. 90% of our working class is in the informal sector. So what are we talking about? I think we need to also safeguard them. There are both real risks in terms of their obsolescence and also in terms of the dual impact of the extreme weather event at the same time. So there is livelihood impact, at the same time there is job loss, whatever little there is. And then the last part is climate justice, again related to what Tanya also was mentioning and Dr. Sharma as well, which is there have been historical polluters. They have developed using certain sort of economic models which are in direct contrast with the climate goals that we have set, and therefore we need to sort of have a fair system where the technology, fund flow, and all these initiatives needs to be sort of brought around. One example is the loss and damage fund that was sort of conceived in 2022 COP. We are far from having the institutionalization of it. Work is going on. That's one example. So that's in terms of $100 million requirement of annual sort of funding in that direction. So we are far, far from it. What I will say is that we have a lot to work on, and all these things I talked about, they're just details, but in essence, I think we need to have a very thoughtful response to this. Sensationalism will not do. Snapping out of fossil fuel-based civilization is not going to work it. Everything around us is either petroleum or intermediate products. Everything, including what I've understood. So that needs to be understood. We can't just transition to greener stuff just like that. So, and there are risks along the way. People are going to suffer either way. What's the best way? It's not a simple question. I don't have the answers at the moment, but yeah, happy to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. I think this is something very, very important. Sometimes we don't have solution immediately, but as we move along, I think the journey ultimately will give you some experiences, whether it is positive or negative, so that those challenges can be overcome. That's what innovation is all about. Like if I talk about RO, reverse osmosis, way back almost 2 decades back, it was a very, very costly proposition. But today when we see RO, it is available. It is not only in households, but in industry also. It is widely used for effluent treatment. Same way, solar. 6 years or 7 years back, it was not the thing that was talked about, not today. It is the survival. Very much in place now. People are going for solar now along with the hybrid. Happy to share with you, we installed the 50 megawatt in our Bharuch facility sometime 2 years back. And we see the benefit today. Our products are ultimately getting green in terms of the production. And it has a high market in European market. It is getting sold. And we have also got those products certified also under ISCC. That's the Certificate of International Sustainability Carbon Certificate. So that's something which is, as we move, all these things will be available for you. I think Manoj touched about agriculture. To share with all of you, since our company also is, DCM Shriram is into agri-rural this business, where we have sugarcane production from various farmers is being used for sugar production, but at the same time, the molasses out of it is used for alcohol. So why these products are important for not only us, but also directly linked with the farmers' productivity. So we have a group of scientists who continuously work on this, and specific, not only hybrids are informed to these farmers from time to time, but at the same time, the best agri practices, which Manoj referred to, is something which is on continual basis. We interact with almost more than 2.5 lakhs farmers, where these agri practices over the last 7 to 8 years have brought in almost savings of 900 billion liters of water. See the impact of those interactions, which can really help us not only in terms of getting the best productivity from these farmers, which is ultimately increasing their income as well, but at the same time impacting the climate to the bare minimum, which is what is being talked about, is about the transition that we are talking about today for this transition towards net zero. Now, having said that, I would this would be my last question because I am conscious of the time. So about the, I think Tanya, I would pose this question to you. The innovation and technology, it plays a very important role in our net zero goals. So if you can share your thought on this subject.
Sure. So, technology is that necessary evil that we can't live without these days. There doesn't go 30 seconds before which we'll look at our phone or we are not connected. It's also made the world a smaller place, obviously a more efficient and a conducive place, but it has its own perils. Like for example, every chat GPT query we do we know what our footprint it generates? We don't. But having said that, the technology is also what has brought us here. And let's look at that part and then how can we actually get the parents out. So energy as the first form, and Mr. Sharma gave a context. And Shruti mentioned that 75% of our still in India is coal-based. But gone are those days now. You still produce coal power at 4.5 rupees. Now you're producing solar power at 2.5 rupees, and that's all because of technical innovation. You've reached a stage where you can have much larger solar panels with much higher efficiency. They capture the sun way more efficiently. And not just during the sunshine hours. You can actually store that power and give it during the peak times. So imagine getting 24-hour green power at sub 5 rupees. हमारे घर का जो बिल आता है वो 7-8 रुपए पर यूनिट आता है और वो कोल बेस्ड पावर है. Imagine 5 रुपए को वो बिल आए green power से. That's when the revolution starts, and that's all because of technology. It's all because of engineering, of how you build better, how you generate more, chemical engineering, material sciences, how you bring the capex down. So there has been a huge role there. Let's look at the hard to abate sectors: steel, aviation, coal in that matter. There is now a very big push in India on the green hydrogen mission. Hydrogen is something that we've been producing for centuries, but we've been producing that hydrogen from coal. Basically, you give energy to water, electrolysis, you split and you produce hydrogen. But what if you start using green power? To do that, you produce green hydrogen, and then you can even get away hard to abate sectors. So this is all at corporation levels. Let's talk about us as individuals. All of us have this smart watch in our hand. It automatically tracks what is happening to us on a health basis. Imagine you get something like this which just tracks what you do on a carbon emission basis. It makes you aware. It makes you start thinking, what am I doing? Should I do this better? Is there any small step I can take without disrupting my life? So technology has that power to unlock potential. Some potential we have seen, whether it's price reduction in green or green hydrogen, or even the way the whole conversation here is happening. All potential that is ready to unlock. But do that in a conscious mind. Don't overuse technology or don't over-invest in it, thinking that this is the only solution. That's where I would like to pause.
Thank you very much, Tanya. And just to, I think, submit on this digital, right now, I think whenever I travel, I don't carry anything. It's only mobile. You don't need anything else. Everything is there, right? From boarding pass to even you want to pay somewhere, it's only mobile. So the digitalization is something which we have to now adopt at the earliest so that our footprints can be minimal. Though it has its own what you call challenges as well as risk involved, but we have to be aware of that consciously. And I think with that I would like to thank all my co-panelists and conclude this session by stating one statement that this just transition is something, when we follow these principles of just transition, it will help guide the policies that benefit not only people but also planet, and leading to more resilient, inclusive and sustainable future for our future generations. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much.
Thanks, a great discussion. I really appreciate. I would like to invite Rakesh Sharma ji to felicitate the panelists. And a wonderful panel we have.
No, this subject is waste time, because transition is something which is a very, very challenge for any chemical industry also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chairperson to DLA ESG Committee. Let's give a round of applause.
12 minutes session. AI governance. AI, you know that AI is very useful. It could be very useful for the humanity, for the world, but simultaneously it could have a huge risk for the humanity, for the society and all. It's a very 10 minute session. In the meanwhile, Kavita ji, आप उनको बुलाइए या संजय गुप्ता एंड सुप्रिया को सर को. So friends, we had one award ceremony also, and some recognition. Those people who have been doing good in the governance in their life, who has done something good in their life, and we are giving recognition to various people. There was a jury who is recognizing their contribution by giving them certificate of recognitions. We will do it after 10 minutes. But Dr. Rakesh Verma has to leave because his flight is 7 बजे. तो हम इनको whatever jury they are coming, just give me 2 minutes. Yeah, Supriya ji, Sanjay ji, आइए please. Supriya Sharma, Sanjay Gupta. Supriya Sharma, Sanjay Gupta, please come forward. Yes? Pardon? No, they were preparing for their citation and all. Okay. Yeah, please come.
A slight variation in the program, as there always is. So, here is me again. So, hello there, those of you who are still present with us and sticking around. The awards were to be presented at the end actually, but one of the award winners has a flight to catch, and therefore we would like to announce on behalf of the jury, myself, Mr. Sanjay and Mr. Deepak, award in the individual category for excellence in good governance. I'm repeating that. Award in the individual category for excellence in good governance. And this one goes to Dr. Rakesh Verma. And Dr. Rakesh Verma, very quickly, is a deserving candidate for the Good Governance Award because of his contributions to public administration, sustainable development, policy reform, and inclusive governance, which have actually made a lasting impact on India's governance landscape. His commitment to ethics, transparency, accountability, coupled with his innovative use of technology and deep understanding of governance, make him a true champion of good governance. His vision, leadership, dedication to public service exemplify the highest ideals of governance. And his service also exemplifies the highest ideal of what an individual strives to give back to the society for public good. Here, presenting to you, Dr. Rakesh Verma in the individual category for excellence in good governance.
Congratulations.
Look sir, look here.
I know you have a flight, but still you can laugh.
Thank you.
आइए, कुछ बोलना चाहेंगे? हाँ, आपकी फ्लाइट है?
बस तेरे माइक मिल जाए तो फ्लाइट दूसरी ले लेंगे।
ये अच्छा यार, क्लैपिंग हो जाए।
मैं जो आपसे कहना चाहता हूँ ना शास्त्रों में मैंने पढ़ा है ना व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे पढ़ा है, लेकिन मैच्योरिटी से आपको बता रहा हूँ, चाहे इश्क हो, चाहे ESG हो, चाहे गुड गवर्नेंस हो, इसमें एक्शन सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट होता है। और आदमी ये बात सबसे कम जानते हैं, महिलाएं ये बात बहुत अच्छी तरह जानती हैं कि प्यार जो है वो एक्शन होता है, केयर होता है, तो वादे नहीं होते हैं। तो अगर हमको ESG गोल की तरफ बढ़ना है और नेट ज़ीरो की तरफ बढ़ना है तो हमें एक्शन की ओर बढ़ना पड़ेगा, डिसीजन की ओर बढ़ना पड़ेगा। यही मैं कहना चाहता हूँ। मैं शायर भी हूँ, तो ये कहना चाहूँगा कि लोग जो हैं रोग की बात बहुत करते हैं, लेकिन जिस्म का ख्याल कोई रखना नहीं जानता। क्योंकि आप इतने तजुर्बे के बाद मुझे समझ में आया है कि रोग तो एक ऐसी चीज़ है जिसको हम देख ही नहीं सकते। और ये जो जनाब हम हमारे सामने बैठे हैं जो इतनी अच्छी बातें करते हैं, इनसे पूछिए कि जिस्म का कितना महत्व है। तो मैं DMA को धन्यवाद देता हूँ और मेरे लायक जो भी कुछ हो सकता है ESG की फील्ड में मैं आपके लिए तैयार हूँ। मैंने सरकार छोड़ी है 2020 में, लेकिन मैंने देश के लिए काम करना नहीं छोड़ा है।
ESG में ही है इनका सेटअप कंपनी अपने जो बचा ना, हमारी ESG कमेटी के मेंबर है, सीनियर मेंबर है।
ठीक, डेफिनेटली विल टच एंड विल नीड योर कंट्रीब्यूशन। सो सर
आप लोगों ने सुबह से इतना पेशेंस रखा है, सुना है, मेरे को भी, पैनलिस्ट को भी, शर्मा जी को भी। So 5 to 10 minutes more. Anuba has really prepared a very good presentation on artificial intelligence. My dear friends, as climate is a major risk for us, artificial is also a major risk if it goes unregulated. So Anuba, over to you, please.
Thank you. Artificial, we've been speaking about governance, but artificial intelligence governance refers to what? So let's get into what it is before we get into the why and how of it. Artificial intelligence governance is the guardrails. They are whatever guardrails can be put in to ensure that the AI tools and systems, they remain safe and ethical. And how do we enforce those guardrails? By having oversight mechanisms. And we are aware that the kind of risks that are associated with artificial intelligence, they range from bias to privacy, infringement to misuse. And for any kind of oversight, just like an employee, you have managers who keep an oversight on what you're doing. You have stakeholders that keep an oversight in terms of what can be the risks with the AI tools. And then some of the stakeholders would of course be the policymakers, lawyers, ethicists, the government itself. And these are, and the purpose is to, of course, mitigate the risks that are associated with AI. Why and how has technology come about? It is to reduce human error. And what happens when there is technology? There is tech error. So I feel governance is in the middle of human error and tech error, because we are trying to mitigate the risk associated with both human error and with tech error. And how do we do this? Now various companies have a lot of committees that have been set up, ethics committees and ethic boards that have been set up, which can help in understanding the societal implications of AI. Because it is not, there are real world biases that come into picture, and it is important to understand the logic and reasoning behind a decision which is taken by an AI tool. Now IBM has launched an AI ethics council, and one of the things that that IBM has come up with in terms of its policy is not only this kind of guideline, but also accountability in terms of what AI does, and that it should be answerable to the stakeholders and to the public in general, or to the consumer in general, in terms of what decision is being taken and why. Now, various countries, whether it is the US or other OECD countries, they've developed governance principles. So there is NIST, which has a risk management framework. There is the European Commission, which has come up with ethics guidelines, and they are quite interesting the way they've been implemented. If you remember, recently the EU AI Act was came into picture. It was in March of 2024, if I'm not wrong, that the Act came into place. And what did the what does the Act really do in terms of assessing the issues on artificial intelligence? It puts it in 3 buckets. Is it high risk, that is, it is unacceptable, or is it moderate risk, or does it fall in the category of risk which is enough but not so much that it needs regulation? So similarly, when it comes to governance of AI, what can be done is a traffic light mechanism can be created. So if when you're deploying an AI tool in your organization, if you have to make an assessment, it can fall in the red category where it is risky and should not be deployed, in the yellow category where the owner of the organization or the people who manage the organization should be aware of the risk, but it can still be implemented, and it can be in the green category where it is absolutely no risk and it's possible to proceed with the deployment of AI. Now, in order to monitor AI, there are various again, there are tools only. There can be a visual dashboard which can provide real-time update on the health and status of the AI system. There can be automated monitoring where there is a detection system for bias and for performance. And there can be audit trails and performance monitoring systems which basically tell us or give us an alert the moment the model deviates from the predefined parameters. Now, this is what all can be done in terms of the steps that can be taken to monitor AI. One of the policies that Unilever has adopted, which I find very interesting as a governance policy, is that any decision that is going to have a significant impact on the human life, it should not be automated and it should be done by a human being. So this is a little bit of background in terms of artificial intelligence. I would just like to take up a few examples to make it a bit more relatable for everyone because it's sort of a technical topic. In terms of monitoring and explainability of an AI system, we know that pretty much all consumer tech businesses, whether it is Amazon, Google, Zomato or Netflix, they work on a recommendation system. So when you are watching television, you are recommended that this is the show that you should watch. Or when you go on Zomato, this is the food that you should order next. Or this is what you last ordered. So this is a recommendation system which they follow. And what these companies are required to do is to keep a log of what recommendation has been made and why was that recommendation made. Because there has to be a certain sense of accountability of why something was done. All AI tools make a lot of decisions, whether we should give this amount of loan to a person or not, and so on and so forth. So it is important that the companies, they maintain a log of those recommendations so that they can be held accountable for the recommendations that they are making. And also it is important that the credit card system, when you're given a how does credit card detection system work? How is that monitoring done? There is also an AI tool involved there. The moment you are making a transaction, it happened with me, I was traveling outside of India and I tried to use my credit card on a website where I wanted to visit a museum. And I got a call from the bank that, is this really you? And when I said that it is me and that the transaction should continue, my card was instead blocked. And I could not make the transaction. And when you're not in your own country, that is the card you're using, it can be quite difficult on what to do. So what it actually does is, it actually creates a lot of false positives. The term used for this is a false positive. And a false positive actually destroys customers' trust in the system. Because it is trying to detect if a fraud is happening or not, but what goes away is a legitimate transaction in the process. So when AI is deployed in any organization or any kind of automation system is brought into place, these false positives also have to be taken care of. But there's a flip side to this false positive. There's a company, I think it was one of the car companies where there was this lady in Arizona actually, where these automated car systems where the car is driven by no one really driving it, the automated car systems did not detect a pedestrian walking on the road. And she died in the process. When the investigation was done on why that AI, that automated car system could not detect her, was because that system did not take care of the false positives. What it did was, it actually thought that there is somebody, I mean there was a sensor, but it could not sense that it is an actual person which was in front of it. So here the false positive was not taken into consideration, and that led to the death of that particular person. Now, because all these autonomous driving systems, in fact, and I realized it while I was working on this piece, they use the same mathematical model that is used for ChatGPT. It is not different, it is the same model which is used, and this model, the language, I mean what it's called, its technical term is deep neural network. This is what it uses to identify that this particular, whatever is coming in front of it, the car needs to move or take a left turn or right turn. And this of course led to, I mean it was all over in the papers and a huge issue for the company. So another example I would like to take is of Amazon, where they had a hiring based model which was biased. Why was it biased? What AI does, we know, is it works on input or input of data. Now what was being done is the resumes that were being given in Amazon for hiring were being given by men. So because it had so many resumes by men, its hiring positions were being made available for men only and not for women. And when Amazon detected this, it is then that it made corrections in its model so that it does not get into any kind of legal issues for not hiring women and only hiring men. So this is again an example of how important the data that is being input into the system is when it comes to AI. The other thing is accountability. Why is it that accountability in AI is so difficult? So the moment, let's take my example, I as a lawyer, if I make a mistake and I give an advice based on which the company finally takes a decision and it goes wrong, I could certainly risk losing my job. That is accountability. Whereas with AI, there isn't enough accountability. Why? Because the supply chain is very long. And the supply chain is so long and complicated that one company would blame another company for something wrong that happens. Because there are so many parties involved, the moment an issue happens, there will be one person saying, I provided the data, I did this, I was involved in this, so this one is responsible and I am not responsible. And the whole reason why generative AI is such a difficult beast to tame versus traditional AI is because, as an example, what is traditional AI? Insurance companies, when they come to you and they say that this is the premium you're going to pay, they do it based on traditional AI. I will not say it's exactly that software, but what they do is they are basically seeing your life expectancy, how you live, your eating habits, and based on that they are calculating a premium and telling you that this is your life expectancy and therefore this is the period in which this is the premium that you have to pay. So it's almost like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. This is traditional AI. Whereas generative AI has a very emergent quality to it. It is very difficult to predict it. Like in Newtonian physics, if I put a contrast, in Newtonian physics what happens? It is possible to predict when the next solar eclipse is going to happen. But can you predict what the weather is going to be today in 2 years' time? You cannot. And that is the emergent quality, and therefore when you input something, the result will come based on everything that has been fed into the language learning model, but you do not know what exactly the result is going to be made. And because there is this lack of explainability, that's why there is also lack of accountability, and it's an open problem which no one is aware of and everyone is trying to solve. And that is the reason why probably AI is such a topic and everybody is discussing it, and how the risks are very high with AI. So every time technology comes, it is great in terms of assisting us, but it can certainly lead to issues because at the end of the day, it is based on information that is provided. Now, if we Google and we go to Reddit or Quora, and we pick up information from there, and that is the information which is fed in the AI tool. Every bias that Quora or Google or Reddit or any of these platforms have is the bias that AI is going to have. So if in ChatGPT or in any other forum, say you type and you ask, give me an image of a doctor or give me an image of a nurse. The moment you say give me an image of a doctor, it will show up the image of a man, and the moment you say give me an image of a nurse, it will show up an image of a woman. Now why is that happening? Because this is basically reflecting the societal stereotypes that come into picture when you are inputting information, because what AI does is it amplifies everything in humans, whether good or bad. So it is just an amplifier of everything we do and think, and therefore it's very important for us to be careful in terms of what kind of information is fed in the tool. I will take one or two more examples before I close this, is on transparency and fairness. In the banking sector, we know there is this thing called credit risk model. Now the credit risk model is an indication of the credit worthiness of a customer. And this credit risk model has to be 100% transparent. So transparency is important because it cannot be that this model, and even Basel norms say this, you cannot use certain pieces of information in your model because they will be discriminatory. Like for example, age or gender of a customer. So your credit risk or your credit worthiness cannot be dependent upon your age or your gender. Another example that I take of fairness is of an online travel agency. So this is again from the news articles. There is this travel agency in 2012 called Orbitz, and it was showing different hotel prices for a Mac user compared to a Windows user. So if I'm a Mac user, then obviously I have more paying capacity and I'm richer, and therefore if I search for a hotel, that hotel is going to be expensive, and whereas if I'm a Windows user, then the hotel recommendation that will come or pop up for me is going to be something that is cheaper. So there was price discrimination because it was steering Mac users towards higher priced hotels, and it was steering because they were assuming that they could spend on luxury accommodations. So this led to a lot of conversation because of this travel agency doing so, that it was about personalized pricing, where you are trying to estimate that this person has more purchasing power, though there was no lawsuit that happened in this because it was aimed at tailoring better customer preferences and all that, but these things need to be mitigated and taken care of so that there is the social impact and sensitivities in this case are taken care of, and we are not on the wrong side of regulatory requirements. I shall end this for everyone. Thank you.
So, thanks Anura. Although she is a company secretary and lawyer, but we requested her to speak on AI, and she in the last time in the JNU, we requested some soft topics for her, and she spoke very well out of the speakers there also. A versatile kind of a personality.
Thank you so much.
Very well. अभी इसमें आप एक्सीडेंट के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, तो a few years ago I was thinking that I was reading कि driverless car जो AI के through चलेगी, so how they will manage. But later on we realized, friends, that this AI, when we have driverless cars, they will be able to reduce 90% of the accidents in the world over. 90% of the accidents we will be able to reduce with the help of AI, which is driverless cars. So it can really help us, but at the same time it can be too risky. आप लोगों ने कुछ मूवीज देखी हैं हॉलीवुड की, तो उसमें ये दिखाया गया था कि robots जो AI है machines है, the scientists will be able to inject consciousness in them. मैं सोचता हूँ कि अगर जो ये हो गया 10 साल बाद ये भी हो सकता है, क्योंकि एक बार ह्यूमन माइंड को पता चल जाए, कोई पिक्चर देख के ये काम हो सकता है तो दे विल करेंगे. वो जो साइंटिस्ट हैं वो पीछे नहीं रुकने वाले. आप कितना रोबोट रुकने वाले नहीं है. They will go on doing their invention, and when we will able to inject consciousness into robots in AI, सो देखते हैं क्या होता है 10 साल बाद, 15 साल बाद, 20 साल बाद, तो मुझे लगता है वो जरूर जाएगा। फिर शर्मा जी को जब बातें करनी होगी तो आप वो कॉन्शियस रॉबर्ट से बात करेंगे, जिसके अंदर we will be able to make them friends and let us see how this future gets unfold. Very challenging, very interesting, but we need to remain aware. हमको जागरूक रहना पड़ेगा शर्मा जी की तरह से। So thank you, and I invite Shivam, CS Shivam, he is the chairman of Ghaziabad chapter, to felicitate Anuba. Clapping for her.
Anuba ji, at present, various national and the private ज्यादा ब्रेक पर बड़ा
आप लोग यहीं हैं इसके बाद
नारद जी छोड़ रही हैं आप या तो हाँ अगर वो ले लो पहले
To begin this to end this brilliant day, now we would like to move forward for the awards, for the Governance Excellence Awards 2024 at this summit. We move forward for the recognitions. First, we have Foundation for Excellence Trust India. The FFE has consistently demonstrated strong governance practices, resulting in significant positive outcomes and contributions to its mission of empowering underprivileged students through education. A key strength of FFE's governance lies in its comprehensive M&E, monitoring and evaluation mechanism, which was truly inspiring. Can we have a huge round of applause? The organization
Foundation for Excellence India Trust. Anybody from Foundation for Excellence India Trust?
moving forward, we have Connecting Dreams Foundation from Bharati College, University of Delhi. Connecting Dreams Foundation Bharati chapter is an organization of transformative change of their entrepreneurial spirit and youth-driven initiatives to propel them towards inclusive and social development and in forwarding the SDGs. Next is Impact Guru Foundation, which promotes healthcare, livelihood, and ESG. Through their integrated approach, they build resilient communities. Can we please have a huge round of applause?
Yes. This side. Hello, excuse me, sir. Pose. Thank you, sir.
Next, we have St. Hydral Educational and Orphans Welfare Society, SHORES, devoted to promoting compassionate care and rehabilitation to the most vulnerable members of our society, the abandoned, the homeless, elderly, in Delhi NCR and Uttar Pradesh. Their initiatives were truly inspiring in terms of waste management and recycling programs, renewable energy sources such as solar power and sustainable practices in their daily operations. Can we please put our hands together? For sure. Next, we have Mr. Shashikant Goyal. Please give him a huge round of applause. Mr. Shashikant Goyal is an electrical engineer with a PG diploma in marketing management from Delhi. After a brief stint of 3 years as production planning head in Delton Cables Limited, Faridabad.
Sir, look at this.
He started his own business in 1979 in manufacturing textile.
Thank you, Diana ji and Theory. Thank you, Deepak ji, for inviting me here. And thank you, ma'am, for the kind words. Wish my wife had heard it. Whatever you said. I would like to congratulate the entire team DMA for the wonderful session we had today. Such wonderful speakers, galaxy of experts you had. Wish we had at the same kind of experts at Merit of Management Association, with which I have been associated for more than 15 years. I have been its president also. Now I'm a member.
We invite you to become DMA member also.
Actually, when I shifted to Noida, I had this option whether I should join a DMA or NMA or Ghaziabad Management Association, but since I was based at Noida, so I opted for that. But now after today, I think I'm having second thought.
Part of Delhi area.
Is anybody from your family around with you?
No.
No? Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Those award winners who have any of their family members, please do bring in your family members on stage as well.
Yes, definitely.
We would also like to recognize Dr. Deepa Gupta. She is the chairperson of GL Bajaj Institute of Management, Greater Noida. Moving forward to the awards. We have Delhi Police Library. Delhi Police Public Library, a unique initiative of Delhi Police, started 11 years ago on 22nd February 2012 in association with Shikhar NGO, is a wonderful effort. Delhi Police Public Library organizes different social interactive programs and activities in order to engage general public, specifically the youth, with people and police. Please have a big round of applause for the award winners.
Welcome, congratulations, and we really appreciate it.
Congratulations. Appreciation.
Yes.
all police stations.
प्लीज सर फेस से थोड़ा सा नीचे करेंगे, फेस के ऊपर आएगा। थैंक यू सर।
We request you to say a few words about this wonderful initiative.
So, thank you very much for this recognition. I just would like to tell you a little story about this police public library. So, basically there was a mistrust between public and police, and it was a part of the community policing. And the first library was established in the Jamia Nagar police station. At that time, that was the idea to bring public and police together through this initiative. It's basically an initiative of bringing people through education. We discussed with the police, and then we started as a Shikhar organization for social development. We started first library with a very small room. And people were not really trusting us also. They were thinking there was a mistrust and there was a fake news outside like we are the Mukhbir or police. That's why we were just running that library. But later stages it was flourished and it has become the first digital library. Even that case has been presented in many institutions outside country also through Delhi police. And presently we are running 16 libraries across Delhi in the police stations. So thank you very much. And Shikhar Organization for Social Development, I would like to, on behalf of entire Shikhar, the founder, Mr. Nadeem is with me. So we started this journey started in 2001, and till date we have already touched the lives of more than 20 lakh children, especially girls, and we are working in the women education. Thank you very much. Yes. So they are the pillars.
देखना भाई सब आता है।
सब तो इनका ही लोग तो सिर्फ we are taking the credits में।
Please look at. Thank you, sir.
I have been BMA's treasurer in 2000.
Wow.
It was 2002 or even prior to that.
किस ईयर में?
2002. जब ये exactly
प्रेसिडेंट कौन थे?
Who was the president?
प्रेसिडेंट हमारे कौन थे?
राकेश शर्मा जी।
राकेश शर्मा। नहीं, राकेश शर्मा जी के बाद थे हमारे दोबारा से
So you should come back in the fold.
The brilliant work of mobile creches. The brilliant work of mobile creches has been of a pivotal organization in India, which has addressed the urgent need for early childhood care and education for children of the marginalized communities. Since its inception in 1969, the organization has worked tirelessly to bridge the gap in care for children living in urban slums, construction sites and other underserved areas. Mobile creches ensures that children have access to nutritious education and to share your insights on this brilliant idea.
Mobile creches the organization is 55-year-old and we have been running creches since then. Just imagine construction site, construction workers, the mothers there, they don't have any places to leave their children. Stone crushing units, brick-ins, रूरल एरिया जहाँ पे औरतें सुबह सुबह चली जाती हैं एग्रीकल्चर अपना खेती बाड़ी करने के लिए, domestic help, all of them, the children just roam about, and how many of them die, especially construction site, you can just imagine. So these children have a place in these creches which we run for 8 hours, 6 days a week. Hot cooked meals, one snack, proper stimulation, early childhood, early education program is run. So everything is structured, every activity is structured according to the principles of learning. Their immunization, their health checkup is done regularly every month. So these are few insights about our creches. I invite all of you, do come and see our centers to see how even a 1.5-year-old month also come to our centers and how our workers take care of them. Thank you so much.
Next, for this wonderful award, we have Miss Mamta. She is a veteran, investigative journalist with a vintage, with an experience of more than 2 decades. She has been a part of the electronic and the print media, having served premier news agencies like the Times of the Indian Express, Hindustan Times, India Today, News 18, Dainik Bhaskar, and Sahara News Channel, amongst others. Ms. Mamta has unearthed many corrupt practices in information department, Uttar Pradesh, due to stories, tenders, words of clothes which got cancelled.
Congratulations. Well done. You all are proud of your mother.
So few words. Ma'am, we request you to share your views.
आज हिंदी दिवस है तो मुझे लगता है आज हिंदी में ही मुझे बोलना चाहिए। और वैसे भी जिस क्लास को हम कैटर कर रहे हैं, मतलब हम जिसको लिखते हैं जिस बारे में, तो मेरी जो प्राइमरली जो मेरी भाषा है वो हिंदी ही है। तो आप लोगों ने मुझे इस लायक समझा और मुझे ये जो आज अवार्ड मिला है तो उसके लिए तहे दिल से धन्यवाद देंगे। और साथ ही साथ आप लोगों ने ये जो जर्नलिज्म का एक नया जो बताया गया मुझे, डीएमए ने जर्नलिज्म का एक ये नया जो अवार्ड निकाला है, ये अच्छी चीज़ है। और इनफैक्ट हमारे जैसे, हमको खैर मुझे तो 20 साल हो गए, लेकिन जो नए बच्चे इस फील्ड में आ रहे हैं उनके लिए एक तरह से कह लीजिए बहुत ही ज़्यादा इंस्पायरिंग होगा और भी वो मन लगा के इन सब चीज़ों को काम करेंगे। और इन्वेस्टिगेटिव जर्नलिज्म में जो खतरे हैं, उन खतरों को भांपने के बाद अगर इस तरीके का आप लोगों की तरफ से अप्रिसिएशन मिलेगा तो नो डाउट मुझे लगता है कि कई सारी चीज़ें जो जनता और जो कहते हैं ना, तो शासक और जो जनता है उसके बीच में हम ही लोग कड़ी का काम करते हैं। आपको सारी वो चीज़ें पता चलती हैं। जैसे अभी अनुभव वो जो बता रही थी तो उन्होंने कई न्यूज़ आर्टिकल्स का जिक्र किया था। तो अगर हम नहीं लिखें तो कई चीज़ें ऐसी होती हैं कि नहीं पता चले। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये आपने जो अवार्ड दिया है, जो हम ये कहें कि मुझे बहुत अच्छा मुझे लग रहा है। और जो नए बच्चे हैं, जो नई जनरेशन है, वो इससे काफ़ी कुछ सीखेगी और उसको भी एक कह लीजिए अंदर ही अंदर उसे खुशी मिलेगी कि अच्छा काम करें, ताकि वो इस तरीके से आएँ और आप लोग उनको सम्मानित करें। इट्स ऑनर। थैंक यू।
Thank you so much, ma'am. The last and the final award goes to GL Bajaj Institute of Management, Greater Noida. GL Bajaj Educational Institutions, Greater Noida. They create an educational group imparting quality education since its establishment in the year 1997. GL Bajaj Group has been successfully building strong professionals in various fields. The institute has been effectively utilized and responded to the challenges of the current scenario, promoting environmental consciousness.
thanks to all of you. Before we have a group photograph, and we request all of you to come on the stage and have a photograph. I would like to acknowledge and give thanks to all of you, to my committee members, to EHG committee members, and to all the secretariat. I would like to request Kavita ji to come on the stage. Kavita and Soumya, they really did hard work. Kavita and Soumya, please come here. Please. Kavita and Soumya, please.